Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Tampa City Council workshop meeting to order. At this time, we have a special guest today for the invocation, a gentleman that I personally have tremendous respect for. Reverend Gregory Gay Sr. is a native of Plant City, Florida, and was educated in the Hillsborough County Public School System. Upon completion of high school, Reverend Gay joined the United States Army and served as a helicopter mechanic crew chief and as a warrant officer in the automotive field. Reverend Gay is married to Miss LaShonda Gay, and they have 6 children. He is the founder and past president of the Concerned Clergy and Citizens Coalition of South Miami, and in 2006, he was named Pastor of the Year by the South Conference Lay Organization. December 26, 2010, Reverend Gay was transferred from the South Conference to the West Conference and assigned as the 39th pastor of Mount Olive AME Church in West Tampa, where he presently serves. At this time, if we could please stand. Reverend Gay, if you'd like to come up for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning, and thank you so very much. Let us pray. God of grace and God of glory, here we are on this day to do the business of the city. We ask, God, if you would invoke your presence here today. Lord, we thank you for what you have done and what you're going to do. We ask in the name of Jesus, oh God, that you would cover us. Lord, station your angels of mercies here. Lord, in the business that be done decent and in order. And this we ask in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
All right, if we could have a roll call, please.
Carlson. Here. Hurtak. Clendenin.
Here.
Henderson. Vieira. Here. Miranda. Here. Maniscalco.
Here.
We have physical quorum.
All right, I just want to let the record reflect that I have 2 memos. One is from Councilwoman Gwendolyn Henderson. Please be advised I will not be in attendance for the City Council workshop session and the City Council evening session on October 26, 2023. Because of the attendance at the 2023 Florida Redevelopment Association Annual Conference. I'd like to submit that to the record. I also have a memo from Councilmember Hurtak, who will also be attending the Florida Redevelopment Association Annual Conference today and will be absent for the October 26th workshop and evening meeting as well. I am not sure if Councilwoman Hurtak is going to chime in virtually. I heard she was. I don't know, so if she does, you know. These memos are going to be filed with the clerk, so you have that. Let's see what else we have. Just a couple of housekeeping items. I have a memo from Councilmember Vieira requesting that a video be played prior to the discussion for number 1. I also have a personal request that after we get into number 1, that the first speaker that comes up is our union president, Mr. Nick Stocco, who's in the front row. I have a memo from Councilmember Alan Clendenin requesting that item number 5 be continued to the November 30th workshop. Can I get a motion? Motion from Councilmember Clendenin to continue item 5 to November 30th, 2023. Second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
And the reason I asked for that continuation is because we don't have 2 of our members from council here present. And I think it's such an important discussion that we all participate in, and we are able to move forward with kind of hopefully with one mind on the issue, and that's the reason why I asked to continue.
All right. Mr. Shelby?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and also just a reminder, Council, that a council member participating remotely requires a finding by City Council of extraordinary circumstances, which would require a vote before you allow the council member to participate. Well, but it's not ripe yet. Okay.
Yeah, so when the time comes, if you want to make the motion, that's for Councilwoman Hurtak. I have a memo from that. If I plan to connect virtually, my aide will notify my legislative aide and the deputy clerk a few minutes in advance, so we'll get it all set up. But when we get to that,
if it happens.
We'll do, if it happens. So.
And Mr. Chairman, just a reminder again,
Yep.
with regard to public comment, did you want me just to address the public with regard to how the workshop works?
Sure.
That if somebody wishes to address council up front at the start of the meeting during public comment, they may do so. And if not, they can address the agenda item after every item that council as it takes it up, but you cannot speak twice. So I just wanted to make that clear for the public. Thank you.
Very good. We need a motion to approve the agenda, or not necessary for the workshop? No? Okay, all right, we're going to go to public comment. We have one registered speaker, which is Mr. Michael Randolph. We're going to take him first. He's online. Mr. Randolph, if you're online, please state your name. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa Community Development Corporation. Today, I'm here to give an update on the West Tampa, on the Rome Yard project. As you know, the West Tampa CDC is getting two things out of that. One is office space, and the second is funding for the SS mapping program. The SS mapping program is called the West Tampa Virtual Employment and Business Connection. The goal is to create resident jobs and business opportunities by using artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and Web3. The strategy is to increase resident-owned businesses that lead to the recirculation of money and a high rate of employment. There are two parts to this program. The first is resident. Residents can go online and put their skills and work experience and be connected to local jobs. They also can connect by clicking on soft skills and hard skills. In terms of the business side of the table, businesses can click on how to start a business, how to prepare a business professional plan and loan application, how to create business opportunities in terms of financing with investors and lenders, and also they can tap into how to do government procurement. And finally, they can tap into what we call ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and get an update on the latest technology and how it can benefit their life. We're very excited about this and looking forward to moving into our new office when it's ready. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. I believe that concludes virtual public speakers. So we'll go to in-person general public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to speak for public comment, please come on up, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
Mentez not Tampa, Florida. Want to say Uhuru, and Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. We say we as African people should always be thinking about our freedom, independence, liberation, and self-determination. And I want to say that I think it's important that this city council denounce what's going on in Palestine. That's very important. And I want to say I'm here to speak for the sane and rational people, not only of the Tampa, Florida area, but of the entire world. If the Secretary General of the United Nations can say, hey, that's not happening in a vacuum, that speaks mounds, because nobody else was ever able to speak on that level, not even Kofi Annan, who is from the heart of Africa. Nobody in that position have been able to say that. It's an atrocity that's taking place right now in occupied Palestine. The atrocity has been going on since May 15th, 1948, and nobody is opening their mouths about it. And it's a disgrace what the people are experiencing. We experience it right here as African people in the United States. We experience it on a daily basis, but not on that level. Definitely not on that level. We see African people, every day you can open the newspaper, look in the news, look in the internet, another African person murdered by state authorities. There's something wrong with that picture. But bringing it back locally, there's something wrong with this picture and this bond money. The voters said they didn't want a tax increase. The voters say different things. The voters say get your budget, get your house in order, you got enough money coming in. And now you want to do a bond issue. And things that's not necessary, they're like really luxury. And it's not all preaching doom and gloom, and the city is growing. You can see growth everywhere you go. But certain people aren't benefiting from that growth. You can see growth throughout the city. Been here most of my life. You can see growth, like phenomenal growth. It's looking good. Business everywhere you go. Construction everywhere you go. But us people on the bottom, we're not seeing that growth. So I say this city needs to hold off on this bonding issue and take it back to the city and take it back to the general public and see what they say.
see what they say about it. But I also like to reiterate that it's very important for people to open their mouth and speak up to what's going on in Palestine. That's very important to do just that. And stop trying to deny people who say, hey, they have opposition to it, then you're trying to shut them out of society.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next speaker. Yes, ma'am.
I think you left your phone. Happy Thursday. This is Sally Isley of the Volunteer Missionary Society. And I want to just read, how hard is it for you to lay down your battle plan and let God be your protection? And also, I have my business plan, my LLC back, and I am so happy today. And I would like to thank my volunteers and my Papa Pals that helped me all the summer and through hoops. And I have a plan about the new transition that I have to make to retail space. And I wrote it out, and Miss Darlene says she'll print it so each one of you all will have a copy. And I've been jumping through hoops, but I've made it. I got my LLC and a great team that lead me, and all the temporary housing requirements over. And I have it here, the cost, because like the brothers say, I did all the requirements, watched the workshops, and signed. My laptop with it on there, it was through Representative Hart that Congressman Castor said that we're to have. My phone got wet in my laptop, my energy drink came off, but I do have it in contract, and I know I had a place here. And this program goes with this. These are the promises God made for women. And I would like to get my worth due for my coffee bar and resource center and all the people. Y'all might not see nobody but me, but I have an awesome team of volunteers. They come, they help me, and we just growing together. I am so happy today, and now it's up to y'all. I have the price and everything, and Ms. Darlene says she'll copy it, and I just thank God, and he just make a way for me. And I am so happy today, and everything is going my way. And if you all come on, you can send the money to Suncoast Credit Union, 1920 East Hillsboro, to the Volunteer Missionary Society, a Cash App. And I need some money to get started. $25,000 or $50,000 will do. And you can send it to the bank, or you can send it cash out to me.
Thank you very
But I
much.
am so happy, and God is blessing me, and I can lean more and straighten up, and I'm on the right path.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And don't forget, we need donations.
All right.
Thank
very
you.
much. Yes, ma'am. Next speaker.
Hey, good morning, Council. Robin Lockett. Understand that this is a workshop today, and, you know, I'm normally up here for housing, but I understand it's about regarding the fire department. We put it in the budget. Make it work. Make it work. Find a way to do it. Because outside of housing, the fire department is the next and neglected next step. So make it work. Make miracles work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. So we go to item number 1. At this time, Councilmember Vieira did make a request to kick off the item with the video. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
if I may, I wanted a video of, this is Joe Greco speaking on this topic 2.5 years ago. He spoke for about 20 minutes. and I edited down some relevant points that I wanted to begin this conversation with, and I want to say something after, if I may, Mr. Chair.
All right, if we can bring up the video on the main screen.
So Channel District not having a fire station when it's a small city in and of itself, how it got through planning, fire department, police department, city council, mayor's office, how it got through without putting a fire station in when it was in a strategic plan from 2006 and says it was of highest priority is beyond me. But there's some other things I want to unpack on there. So all these, talking about dollars and finding dollars, well, we find dollars for lots of other stuff, like 18,000 more square feet over at the convention center, when we don't even utilize all the convention center now. 3 stations put in place immediately. Station 11, and it's already built, even though it's an old building, we live in a bunch of old buildings. As you know, we haven't built a new station in the city proper other than not a new number station in a long time. So we're going to reopen Old 11, put another engine and rescue car in there, and you'll facilitate response times that are lagging and calls that are coming in that are overburdening the stations surrounding. Right there off of Waters, across from the dog track. She needs to reopen that station, and she said that in her thing. That was in the plan. Channel District, that's a no-brainer. You don't have to need a consultant to know that if you build another city right on the outskirts of your city where you only have one engine company that responds into that area, also that engine company responds onto Harbor Island. You don't need a consultant to tell you need a station in Channel District. You can just open your eyes and look up at that skyline as you're traveling westbound on I-4 and look at where it starts now at 22nd Street all the way downtown. That's all new construction that should have been handled by the previous administration and forced to put a fire station in. They're not asked, forced. Next, the fire station in North Tampa. That station that's going to house that engine company and that rescue car that's being housed currently at Station 13, who's the most populous station and the largest area in the city. The city's growing probably faster than any other city in America. If you're going to allow all this new building, West Tampa, that's Station 9. It's already a busy station. Not only that, now it's got Dale Mabry and Cypress, all that new Midtown activity. All this stuff that's just come out of the ground and just getting finished, all those will have bodies in them very soon. Needing service, will all those new businesses that y'all are allowing to come in here, all of those businesses have traffic during the daytime. All of them will be needing service. But, I mean, the time for talking's over, the consulting's over. That GIS study I gave you, that has everything in there. We're tired of talking about it. Get the stations going. Get the manpower. Listen, we're so far behind. We only got 100 applicants or 150 applicants for the last hire. You can't hire every single one of them. So you got to start hiring now, because when these stations start going up, they got to have people in them. When the apparatus are rolling down the street, they got to have bodies in them to help those citizens that are calling. We've been talking about it, discussing it, and looking at it, and putting committees together. You don't need any more of that. That GI study I gave you lays it all out. There is no other information. But we got to hire some people. We got to build some fire stations. And it's done. I'm done talking about it. And I want to thank council for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank the mayor's office and especially Chief Bennett and Chief Tripp.
Thank you very much.
And if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Thank you. I just want to set this up, if I may. So that, for folks who don't know Joe Greco, he's the former Tampa Firefighters Local 754 president at the time. That was a speech he gave here that made a lot of news media, because Joe wore his heart on his sleeve like he always does. And that was 2.5 years ago. He could walk in here and say the same words that you just saw and have pretty much the same situation, except for Fire Station 25, which I'll talk about. So it's what was true then is pretty much true now. And if that doesn't outrage you, nothing will. And that's why we're here today. What Joe said then is true today, which is we're tired of talking, we're tired of platitudes, and we want to get this train leaving this station. We want to quote Beyonce, put a ring on it and make it permanent so that this goes forward. The need is obvious here in the city of Tampa for more fire stations. and the kind of hardening and other projects, many of which Mr. Rajero will be talking about. You take a look at Fire Station 24, open and obvious. I think everybody agrees on the need for that. Over in the Fowler Bush area, we got Station 25 to take care of an immediate need. Now we got to finish up the project on 24. Joe talked a lot about Channelside and downtown. I actually spoke to Joe this morning. He called me and he said there was something that was true for 100 years in downtown that's not true today, which is nobody lived downtown. And you take a look at the population of downtown Tampa from 20, 30 years ago and compare it to today, it's radically changed. But yet we still have one fire station servicing them, as well as our good friends in Harbor Island. West Tampa, ton of workforce housing up there. We got to look at that area. New Tampa, et cetera, et cetera. We have a real critical need in this city for more fire stations. We're a growing city, and I always say that as we allow development to come in the city, we have to have corresponding public safety investments in that area. We'll talk about in a little bit with Mr. Rajero about getting money for doing this, right? I had proposed a very small millage increase to try to pay for that. That failed, so now I'm bringing up the issue of bonding. No one likes bonding. We've done it for some other projects. There's some negativity associated with it, but guess what? We have no other realistic choice at this time. There's going to be other issues that are going to be brought up. People are going to talk about, as an option, I believe, the administration, capping CRAs. I'm all for that within certain, reasonable steps, et cetera. But that's a long process. We're not going to use that as something to pay for our needs right now. Why? Because that's going to push the ball further down the court. And 2.5 years from now, I'm going to play Nick Stocco's video and say, boy, wasn't Nick passionate 2.5 years ago? I'm going to talk about impact fees. I'm all for impact fees. That's great. But guess what? Like I said, that's a chicken nugget, and we need a McRib. That's something that's very small and very, very narrowly tailored. And special taxing districts, I think they're called, where you can tax the local area that's being benefited. Completely inapplicable for North Tampa. After we rejected a millage increase, we shouldn't tax the working communities of Fowler and Bush for their own fire stations. So bottom line is, no more talk, no more platitudes. Let's get this train leaving the station today. That's why this motion is made, because people are sick and tired of talking. We want to see action that is enforceable and that sticks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman Vieira, for bringing this up. I miss Joe Greco after seeing that video, but I'm glad that we have Nick Stocco here in leadership, who's very, very passionate about all this. I'm glad that you're bringing this up, and I know, like you mentioned, bonding is not popular. However, these are things that we absolutely need. As was mentioned, downtown didn't have the population back in the day. Now we have that density, and it's just going to get worse, and we still have one fire station. When we talk about bonding, one thing that we can also look at, and this is a what if, but should the CIT be renewed and put on the ballot and everything? If we're bonding now, we can look at that CIT, should it be renewed, and make sure that we can pay those bonds back sooner with that CIT money. The fact of the matter is, there's the opportunity to do it. We need to do it. Joe Greco, Captain Greco, spoke 2.5 years ago. Very little has changed, if anything. I brought up, buy the police station across the street, use CRA money, free it up, put a fire station below, but then you have Water Street. There's nothing wrong with more public safety. There's nothing wrong with the growing density that we have and the population that's coming to the city. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, because you never know. You have high rises, you have big buildings there, and you can't say, well, we don't need a ladder truck. Or to say, what's young people down there? They don't need medical call. That's not how it works. I'm not saying you said it, but I'm saying, there is no excuse for it. You have the fireboat, you have the water right here. I know that there's an idea, there's a plan from someone that we discussed it briefly about creating something down in the channel area. Why not? Housing is the biggest issue that we're facing right now. Public safety is right there. People want to feel safe, whether it's police, whether it's fire. It's a no-brainer. We can't look at doing the pretty things. We need to do what is necessary. And as I mentioned in the last CRA meeting, we should make it our goal to bring a grocery store to East Tampa, right? We should make it our goal now to build more fire stations, to allocate the money, to get the funding. The union is very passionate about it. We hear about it all the time. I'm in constant communication with Mr. Stocco and others. It's something that needs to be done. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. Don't forget South Tampa, the station that's near me and near Nick is also the Marine unit. So when they're in the water in the bay helping rescue someone, there's no station that covers a lot of South Tampa also. So we have to look at all the different needs throughout the city. But the thing I want to say is that City Council doesn't have to be convinced on this. We voted a year ago. Councilmember Vieira and former Councilmember Goods pushed for several years to get a station. Last year, Councilmember Vieira made a motion for $15 million for a new station. And we found out a month ago in the budget discussion that the administration just decided not to build it. They didn't tell us that they decided not to build it, they just did it. And we asked, where's the money? And they said, we spent it somewhere else. So the problem here is not convincing City Council that we need to do this. The problem is convincing the administration, because it's obvious that the administration doesn't want to build fire stations. They don't want to invest in public safety on the fire safety area. And as long as the administration does not want to build fire station or does not want to invest in public safety, we're not going to get anything. We can vote for $100 million today. We can vote to instruct staff to spend $100 million on bonding. But if the administration doesn't want to do it, they just won't do it. And so whatever the discussion is today, we need to figure out how are we going to convince the administration that this is a priority, because we don't need to convince City Council. We already voted a year ago to do this. Thank you.
Councilman Clendenin, I don't know if Councilman Miranda has a comment, but after the comments up here, we have to take a 5-minute recess because we've lost, we have an issue with the camera and the live feed, and CTTV is asking that we need to restart the system. So go ahead, sir.
Okay, you know, I don't think that there's a disagreement about the needs of fire and rescue services in the city of Tampa, but I think what we have is we have staging and logistics, financing considerations of how we bring this forward over a period of time. And for me, and I'm sure both people that are listening, it's also confusing. Of course, maybe nobody's listening because we have trouble with the feed, right? I think what we're looking at is there's some confusion about equipment versus advanced life support, and where we stage that, where we build that. I'm still having a difficult time with it. I'll be honest with you, and apologies to my fire brothers and sisters about the channel side issue, because we have Fire Station 1 with the land there that we can build, and it seems to me that the response time between Fire Station 1 and the extreme end of channel side is pretty much equivalent to Fire Station 1, the extreme end to downtown Tampa. We just need to build infrastructure there and possibly put maybe another more advanced life support in downtown because of the increased personnel, and along with some of the heavy equipment that you guys are seeking. I can see that need is self-evident to me. I'm just not certain that we need to actually have another fire station there. The other fire station requests, absolutely 100%. But now where do we focus on first? And I think that was part of our discussion about how we fund the fire. Is the immediate need is we have a lot of firefighters that are working in substandard conditions. And our number one goal right now should be to rebuild the stations that are not up to current standards and to provide a safe and place for our people, our employees that are working there, and ensure that those areas have the equipment that is needed to service the city of Tampa. So I think as we look at this, instead of looking at it as a whole, I think we need to look at it as a staging process of priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and move through these fiscal years of how we budget this, because we also have to be prudent with the dollars. You know, you can't take out, as we've heard time and time again about bonding, you can't take out a bunch of money and just let it sit in the bank. You have to be ready to spend it when you take that money out, because it's not, you know, we shouldn't be paying interest on bonds that we're not actually actively using. So when we're having this discussion amongst us up here at the dais, if we could talk about specific needs, what needs to be done in fiscal year 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and where that money is coming from each one of those years, I think it would be helpful. Like, where do we need ALS? Where do we need heavy equipment? Where do we need additional personnel? And what year do we need it? I know in an ideal world, we need it all yesterday, but we're not in an ideal world. We're heading in fiscal year 24 with the deficit that I think we all admit we have a deficit. And I think we all admit that this has been gone on way too long, and we need to resolve it. But we need to have a more strategic plan. I think if we can come to an agreement on a strategic plan, along with the administration, and along with the Chief Tripp, and the president of the firefighters, and the men and women they represent, I think the city of Tampa will be well served.
Councilman Miranda?
Thank you,
and then
Mr. Chairman.
We'll take the 5-minute recess after for the technology stuff.
Oh, you want me to speak during the recess?
No, go now. And then
I'm only waking, I'm just waking up so the people in the audience there.
I'm just
You have
curious,
to-
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Miranda.
just-
I'm
it's
sorry.
one
Are we
camera that's
broadcasting now? Are we broadcasting live?
Yeah, the feed is live. It's one of the cameras.
Just one camera?
Yeah, the one that's at the podium.
I'm sorry, thank you.
So, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. You know, all this goes down to, you have two types of cities. Ones that are stagnant and ones that are growing. That's the only two types you have. The ones that are stagnant have very little chance to keep up. The ones that are growing needs a lot more money to keep up. And that's the only difference between them. When when we talked about downtown and the development, some time back, there was no one living in downtown. There was, I don't know, 600 people in prison. That was it. And it was barren. I could make a left-hand turn coming out of the parking lot, never looking to the right. Now you have to look to the right 4 times because they're coming at you at all angles. So that's the prosperity that you have to live with, and sometimes it's necessary evil that due to the prosperity, now you're in a crunch. You say, what do I do now? Well, we should have listened to that a long time ago. This is not new today. And the public demands very little in a way, but priority number 1 is always public safety. Not because I'm saying it, not because the other council members have said it, because that's what the public wants. That's what the public needs the most. Fire and police, or police and fire, and not to leave back, if you want to see a city that doesn't move, just stop picking the garbage for about 2 weeks. It all goes to HE double hockey sticks. You can't do that. And we're not saying we're doing that. No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, the cognizance of the facts is that all the areas in the city have grown very, very well to some extent. What's not growing is a need for public service to the people who are now living there, whether it was X factor, and they have an X and a Y factor population. So those standards are not mine. They're not the fire department's. But those standards have been long into the records of what you need to make a city that is acceptable to the public for public safety. Those are not my numbers. Those are not your numbers. Those are the numbers that are done by experts many years ago. You have a population of X, you need so many stations. You have a population of Y, you need that. And I think we passed that threshold some time back. So I'm here to say that although I don't like bonding, I have to take a good look at it, but I think I'll vote for the bonding issue. However, you can't continue to bond everything, because sooner or later, you're going to be in debt where you can't make the payment. And when that happens, your interest rate gets so high that you can't afford to make the payment if you had the money. So these are the things that are going on. Everything in life starts with 1, and it multiplies to many. And that's what life is all about. No matter if you're environmentalist, not environmentalist, you're an R or a D or an I or whatever it is that you want to call yourself, it's about the service to the general public and population as a whole. And that's what we're looking, that's what this workshop's about, to look and see what the needs are and where they're going to be placed when the need is greatest. So thank you very much.
All right, we have a 5-minute recess for CTTV to restart the cameras and stuff, and we'll be right back. All right, Tampa City Council is back in session. If we could have roll call, please.
Carlson,
Here.
Kurtek, Clinton, Henderson, Rivera. Here. Miranda. Here. Maniscalco.
Here.
Physical quorum.
All right, I believe, was Mr. O'Hara going to kick off the discussion, Councilman Vieira?
I believe so, yes.
All right, we'll just wait a moment for him to come down. But I'll say that we're never going to regret having too much public safety or building fire safety or having enough firefighters. It just, to me, it's something that we need because the city's going to continue growing. And we're not keeping up now. We're going to just get deeper and deeper in the hole if we don't take action. And so,
Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention.
exactly. Councilman Sinatra, thank you very much.
The Tampa was the quickest city in the United States to recover from COVID-19.
Yes, that was an article that was published a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So,
Should we, does anybody have the number for Mr. O'Hara's beeper?
or Mr. Stocco, would you like to go first, or do you want to wait for the CFO?
We'll wait for the CFO.
Okay,
It'd probably be smarter.
okay, all right.
Because he's
coming.
gonna give the,
All right, all right.
so we can know what we're dealing with. There you go.
Apologize, council. My understanding, I was going to be after all the speakers.
We fooled you, we came in the back door.
Thank you for your patience.
All right, so is the slide that you're going to be speaking on the FY 2024 to 2028 adopted fire department CIP, is that yours?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's on our screen, if we can bring it up on the main
That
screen,
is mine. Thank you.
and go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and let me offer an apology ahead of time. I had initially anticipated simply having a few Elmo slides and speaking to it. And if we got carried away, again, I apologize. But to kind of set the table, I want to paint a little bit bigger picture, confine it to the fire stations, but paint a little bit bigger picture other than just the potential revenues for a financing fire station plan. So we have some slides. If I could begin with the Elmo, however.
All
And I'm
right,
sorry, Dennis O'Hara, Chief Financial Officer.
okay,
All right. Again, setting the stage, we'll work broadly and then bring it down to the detail. We shared with you, I believe it was last week, that we achieved, and congratulations again, achieved a higher rate on the stormwater bond, credit that council approved last week. And this week, you see on the far right there in green, Standard & Poor's reaffirmed their AAA rating for the cities, again, what we call, what we'll call the FICO score. Very, very positive. We've talked before, these rating agencies don't just set it and forget it. They do their due diligence and their surveillance, et cetera. So again, congratulations to the city council, the mayor. That's the highest you can get. And what I'm trying to paint a picture here of initially is a very, very strong financial foundation for whatever financing council chooses to do. And in the spirit of, again, Councilman Carlson, transparency and a broader picture, I also would like to socialize with the finance chair and with council the possibility of coming back at a future workshop to discuss the city's debt picture in its entirety. Questions come up and we answer them. Again, it's all contained in the budget, it's all contained in our financial statements, but it is not simple. So if council would be open to that in the near future, we'd come in and just bring you through the entirety of the city's current and anticipated debt picture, something to percolate there on, if you would. And if I could have the presentation up, please.
all right, there we go. And I'll bring it
Thank
up on
you.
our screen here, the CIP.
Thank you very much in the back there. Regarding, again, we're getting back to the fire facilities. You see 5 facilities here. I would suggest to council and the public that the initial first steps, and this is the good news, have already been done. Council adopted this plan as part of the fiscal year 24-28 capital improvement program. So we have a plan. You see what's been appropriated in the initial year. And again, the only thing legally budgeted is that first year. Everything else is a plan. And if I can run down the slide, it's in chronological order in terms of construction. The closest alligator to the boat, I think, from a construction perspective is Fire Station 24, as we've discussed. I know Ms. Duncan's portfolio is working very hard to accelerate that. We've discussed that. And then in fiscal year 26, what I would describe as a very aggressive plan for Fire Station 6 and the fire maintenance and supply facility. And then in fiscal year 27, Fire Station number 9, I believe council knows, but it's worth reiterating that the fire maintenance and supply facility issue has to be resolved before we can do Fire Station number 9. And then you see bringing it up in final year, or the fiscal year 27, excuse me, is Fire Station number 10. You also see to the far right, it's a not insignificant amount of funding. So we've got an aggressive logistical plan and a pretty significant financing plan at over $116 million, not including the anticipated interest costs. And this is another reason why I think it would be beneficial to discuss our debt picture in its entirety, because it's a bit like saying, you know, I paid $50,000 for my car. Only if you paid cash did you pay $50,000 for your car. I think I've got the next. There you go. Thank you. So what would this look like? And you see here an admittedly very conservative draft of the funding scenario for all 5 fire locations. I'd like to offer a few caveats before I get into the detail, though. As council knows, but again, it's worth reiterating, we would not issue this debt all at once. Okay, we would, upon council's approval, begin with a series of short-term debt instruments. You know, whether it's a line of credit, whether it's a bank note, et cetera. Further to, I believe, Councilman Clendenin's previous comments about prioritization and timing and logistics. But this is a very good way, I think, to illustrate the scale of what we're talking about in terms of what we pay annually. You see just over $7 million, and the total costs from a financing perspective of this endeavor. 30 years, 4.5%. I want to reiterate, we anticipate we are very well placed in the market, and of course we always do our best. Our team always does its best to get the lowest true interest cost, but I don't need to tell you, money is expensive right now. Money is very, very expensive right now. And you've got that compounding the, whether you want to call it supply chain issues, costs of material issues, you've got that compounding the cost increases for getting these things done. So again, it's not an inexpensive proposition. And you see total cost over $210 million, and I've already referenced the annual payment that would be required. And here you see it presented graphically. You've seen similar slides before from an entire city perspective. We typically break it down by enterprise and general government debt. This is how we like to do things, though. You see a nice, smooth $7+ million payment over time. No surprises for subsequent mayors, no surprises for subsequent administrations. Everybody knows what's coming. Also typical, you see, is the front-end loading of paying the interest costs. And as you pay the debt, you start paying more and more of the principal. You see we're splitting year 1 and year 31, but again, a typical 30-year bond. It will be more complex than this, but this is a very good illustration of what we would be doing. Now that you've seen it at scale, though, let me bring it down, if I may, to, again, what's coming the fastest from our perspective, and that's Fire Station 24. And this page, of course, is right out of the capital improvement program. Some funding was already in place, as we discussed in the past, but planned financing of a little over $16 million. And you can see the beginning with the expenditures, the uses, if you will, and then down you see the funding sources, and it is overwhelmingly an anticipated debt issuance this fiscal year. And again, a similar format to all 5. This is what it looks like. Very expensive from an interest perspective compared to the recent history of interest costs. Inexpensive, of course, if you go back to, I don't know, the 1980s, but based on recent history, money is expensive. As I said, annual payments, approximately $1 million for 30 years, Fire Station 24. And again, you see it represented graphically here, nice and smooth, no balloon payments, et cetera, things like that. And you would see this for every, we didn't do one for every station, but you would see similar graphics and costs for each of the facilities, Fire Station number 6 up next, for instance. Again, right out of the capital improvement program. Now to what I would describe as the challenge and really, I think, the heart of the motion and the motion maker's intent. How do we pay for this? What are our potential funding sources? And I'd like to talk a little bit about each of those options. First of all, I think we've all reconciled ourselves that it will include some sort of financing plan. If we just save up and go cash, you'll be getting these facilities in about 150 years. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but it will take a lot of time to save up that funding. Doesn't mean you can't use some PAYGO, again, as we've done in our PIPES program. The non-ad valorem bond, again, it would be our typical, the City of Tampa's typical way of wrapping up all these financings, whether it's various short-term instruments, et cetera. Non-ad valorem bonds, as the name implies, does not include the power council has to tax. Okay, it's non-ad valorem, it's non-property tax, and that's what we've historically done in the City of Tampa. Which brings me to the second bullet, or the second sub-bullet, the general obligation bond. To my knowledge, we've never done this in the City of Tampa, and it's a little exotic for us. That is pledging, quote, the full faith and credit of the City of Tampa, including City Council's power to tax. And because of that, according to Florida statute, it requires a referendum. You take it to the voters, have them approve or disapprove. I'm not advocating that, but it is an option. A full faith and credit pledge makes a stronger credit from a market perspective, although again, I reiterate, we have a very, very strong credit platform right now in the market with rating agencies and with investors. But those are options. Millage increase. Again, we've had significant discussion about that very recently as we prepped and approved the fiscal year 24 budget. Again, I'm not advocating a millage increase, but we would be remiss if we did not consider the possibility going forward of this being a potential funding source. Again, I'm not advocating bullet number 3 either, but it has surfaced many times, reducing the city's contributions to the community redevelopment agencies or areas. I don't know that we would necessarily, again, I'm making this up, if we got $10 million in the general fund, again, we wouldn't specifically pledge that revenue that the CRA was not getting, but any revenue in the general fund just about you can use to pay debt. For some reason, it didn't make it on to this particular visual aid, but the community investment tax. We talked a lot about that also. It is coming, whether we like it or not, sunsetting in 2026. As you know, and I think the public knows, there has been discussion about addressing that earlier rather than later, maybe even as soon as next year. But regardless of when it's addressed, it is a very significant potential funding source. The City of Tampa receives about $30-odd million a year from the CIT right now. In the past, it has been largely concentrated from a city perspective on vehicles, especially public safety vehicles. Council will recall we've been working to try to wean ourselves off that if the worst case scenario happens and that funding simply discontinues. But if it is continued, it's a very significant funding source to consider. The final bullet on this page, reduce existing spending and levels of service. Again, we would submit, we're always looking, I'm sorry, sir?
No, yeah.
I'm sorry, you have a, sir?
No, go ahead,
Oh, I
go ahead.
apologize. I thought you had a question for me. We're always aggressively looking, I know council is always aggressively looking, the Citizens Advisory Committee is aggressively looking at how well we're spending our funding. It would take a significant amount of reduction, I think, to move the needle on these funding requirements. Next slide. Continuing with the potential funding sources, implementing or increasing other revenues. And you see we've put an example up there, impact fees. Impact fees continue to surface. Philosophically, we think it's a good idea. We have received a proposal from our third-party vendor, Raftellus. Council is familiar with their work, to go out and seek how can we, what are the necessary steps, and what would we be likely to get from implementing not new impact fees, for example, public safety impact fees, or refreshing and updating other impact fees. These last two I've separated with a dotted line because, again, they're a bit exotic for the city of Tampa. We don't have them. To my knowledge, we've never had them. The first is a municipal service taxing unit, an MSTU. We have worked with them in the past when we worked for other organizations. It's basically a taxation on a particular geographic area for increase in service or improvements. To my knowledge, only the county can implement it, but it can include municipalities, either the entirety or a portion. So it's something perhaps worth exploring. Very similarly, the Emergency Services Municipal Services Non-Ad Valorem Special Assessment. It's similar to an MSTU, except it's not based on valuation, property tax. It's simply an assessment for additional services or improvements. Again, a little exotic, maybe outside the scope of what council is or was considering, but again, we wanted to make sure we went over the potential funding options with a fine-tooth comb. In closing, the plan is in place. Fiscal year 24, again, has been fiscal year 24, and not coincidentally, Fire Station 24 seemed to be on track. The funding is appropriated in the current fiscal year. Again, I think, let me just go back to that first slide. I think this is very aggressive. You see the fire maintenance and supply in fiscal year 24, the current fiscal year, $12 million. That's for land. I don't know how likely it is that we're going to find $12 million worth of land to place this facility on in fiscal year 24, but we are prepared for it from a planning perspective. Very aggressive, subject to change, and with that, we can answer any questions or provide additional information. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your professionalism, a great presentation, and you said congratulations to council. Congratulations to the finance department. You're a very good steward of the public money, and you have a great team, and I'm always going to compliment them. And I'm grateful that we have the Citizens Budget Board. I'm grateful that we have so many eyes on the budget because it's complicated. $1.9 billion is a lot of money. So I like to look at history and how things happened in the past and why they happened. So World War II, you had Mayor Hickson, you had Mayor Nucio, and you had Mayor Lane. People that have long been dead. However, the reason I bring them up is I visited the Tampa Firefighter Museum many times, and they have images of many of the fire stations throughout Tampa, and I noticed that there are so many fire stations that were built in the 1950s. I would say between that Hickson-Nucio era of the 1950s, and I asked myself, how did they get there? How did they finance that? And why such a big impact? It's not like they built one fire station. There are many mid-century fire stations in the city of Tampa from that era. Was it model cities? Was it urban renewal? Because that was that period where Tampa was getting a lot of federal funding. I don't know. Or did we just have that tax revenue coming in and an administrations, because you're talking a spread of 3 mayors there, that decided Tampa's growing because we saw a large increase and then annexation of city land and everything post-World War II, that we saw the need for continued investments in public safety. We had, you had mentioned public safety impact fees, and that's something that we need to look at. I know that could only be several $100,000s a year, but it helps. It helps when we talk about 30 years amortization and the interest that we spend over 30 years. We talk about the CIT. My hope is that, and the city gets $30 million annually from the existing CIT, which expires now in 2 years or so, 2.5 years, because 2024 is 2 months away, incredibly. But should that CIT get renewed, and this is the what if, and the big question, it allows 30 years of dedicated funding that we could look forward to. And if those percentages per municipality are kept the same, which we continue getting that $30 million over the next 30 years, that would help us if we are to look at simply bonding for new fire stations. It'll help us pay down those loans quicker. I've already mentioned it earlier today. And instead of a 30-year mortgage, we're paying 15 or 10-year, whatever it is. But now we would have public safety impact fees. We would have other opportunities. I think we need to look towards the past to build for the future. And I mentioned those mayors from the 1950s and what they did. I'd like to see that kind of vision again, where it was such a heavy investment in public safety. I applaud this administration with Mayor Castor with pipes. Pipes is, we saw the need, but it's a multi-billion-dollar investment, and I think we need to have that same spirit when it comes to public safety, because these are needs that the community wants, and I think we can do it. Pipes cost money. Pipes, we pay interest. However, it's financed. The stormwater assessment at $251 million, we're paying interest. The Hannah project, we're paying interest. Interest is there. Like you said, money is not cheap anymore. But thankfully, and we are recognized all over the place, and thanks to your team and thanks to all the good people in the city and the city council, we have a very good bond and credit rating. I saw AAA, I saw AA+. That's serious, especially coming out of the pandemic. Councilman Miranda mentioned the article that said we were the city that grew or recovered quickest from that pandemic, and I applaud, again, the great team that we have at the city of Tampa. But I think the vision should be, we have 3.5 years looking at this next term. The mayor has 3.5 years left. A total dedication to public safety, housing and public safety, but doing what we did in the 50s. However, I mean, I'll do my research and see, how did those mayors get those things done? Was it all federal grants? There weren't WPA projects. That was Depression era. But why not, the interstate came through in the 1950s with the Federal Highway Act. So many things. It was the needs, not the wants. We had the needs, and we invested in those things. And I think we could revisit that, relive that, and look at ways to get back to that. I think that's an honorable pursuit. I think everybody wins. And again, like I mentioned as we came back from the break, we're not going to regret ever having too much public safety or investing too much in public safety. Because as the city grows and more people are moving here every day we have more people coming here, we're going to need to address sooner than later, sooner being now, those needs. Because the hole is going to get deeper and deeper, and we're just never going to climb out of it. So again, thank you for your presentation. I know I talk a lot. I know I look towards the past, but we can learn a lot from the past, from mistakes and from a lot of the good things that they did, which I give credit to those mayors and those administrations for having the foresight and investing in public safety. Councilman Vieira, Councilman Clendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and very wise words on a lot of issues, and you bring up something as well that we can look to, which is state and federal grants. I know we've worked with a lot of our state partners. I know, I believe Senator Jay Collins, State Representative Danny Alvarez, and others, and we obviously have a great relationship with our new Congresswoman Laura Lee, and of course, a champion for Tampa, Kathy Castor, and a lot of these things. So those are things, but those are things we all agree that are wonderful, but they take time, and we need a mechanism to get this thing done now because time is of the essence. When I hear your words, Mr. Chairman, and they're wonderful, I also think of the vision behind that public safety master plan, which we got funded in this year's budget, which was to make public safety an ongoing priority in our infrastructure, in our budget, in our new budget priorities, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody likes, again, the downside of bonding and of borrowing. Nobody likes that. But in my opinion, if we want action right now and forward movement right now, it's our only hope right now for something that's right now. Like you wisely mentioned, we did it for Hannah, we did it for a lot of other things, and we can do it for our core critical fire needs. You know, I had pushed for a very tiny millage increase for leverage for the bonding issue. Leverage to put some dollars towards fire and police. And again, given that, this is our only option right now, in my opinion, for immediate results. And Mr. Rajero,
Yes.
so if let's say that we have some positive revenue changes, could be CIT, could be whatever it may be. Let's say in 10 years, let's say we go forward with a full plan, this robust $100+ million investment in Tampa Fire Rescue. In 10 years, could we pay that down early and then forego the remaining 20 years of interest? Is that true, or am I off?
It is possible. Again, I'm oversimplifying, but, you know, we would probably implement short-term debt instruments and then roll it all up into a big bond. The bond will typically have a period of 10 years before you could call it.
Yes.
And then again, if we build into the bond documents and agreements after that, what will probably be a 10-year period, we could, and I think this is your point, we could mitigate the amount of interest payments associated with that bond.
Thank you for that, sir. So, I mean, what I plan on doing with council's consent is to make a two-sided motion, because I think there's two issues. And again, with the consent of council, obviously, here, which is number one, going forward with a plan today on non-ad valorem bond or something for some of the robust plans. And I do want to salute you, sir, and the administration for putting forth what appears to be a $115 million potentially bondable plan for public safety for Tampa Fire Rescue, to put forth 24, some of the improvements on some of the stations that you mentioned, something that's very robust and I think is wonderful. So moving that forward in whatever mechanism we have, as well as number two, because there's other areas of great concern that may not be included in this plan. We talk about Channelside. We talk about downtown Tampa. We talk about New Tampa and their response times out at K-Bar Ranch, and looking at either having a medical-only unit there, maybe kind of like we did in 25, or having it cut through off Morris Bridge Road. Whatever it is, we need obviously to move forward on that. Councilman Carlson had talked about South Tampa. Obviously, a lot of core critical needs there, and obviously he's a great advocate for that area, and West Tampa, et cetera. But to highlight some areas that we also want forward movement on throughout the city of Tampa for Tampa Fire Rescue, that would be the second part of the motion, because again, this bonding measure takes care of some immediate needs, but we can't let go of our side on the other ones. And again, I want to restate what I said, which is there are things that we can say yes to, but they're not the panacea. They're not the answer that we need. Public safety impact fees, that's wonderful. We considered that 2 years ago. We could have done it 2 years ago. We didn't. Maybe you could have had that revenue by now, whatever. But, and I strongly support that, but that does not begin to fund our public safety needs. It's very, very limited. CRA capping, 100% for that. That takes a while. Let's do that, but that takes a while. Grants, the municipal services tax, again, to me, that's dead on arrival. We shouldn't tax the working class communities of Bush and Fowler for this fire station directly, in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll, if I may, with the consent of council, I'll make that motion, but and add on whatever. Thank you.
Councilman Clendenin, Councilman Miranda, Councilman Carlson.
Yes, can you fast forward through your scenario to, I think, is the next screen?
I can't see it. Can I have that? Thank you.
That
This one?
Yes.
Yes.
So I want to make sure we're clear. So we're talking about nearly $117 million in upfront costs, but really we're talking $214 million. And
Yes.
I'm going to violate a rule of politics and say and go back and double down on a loss and say this is exactly what I looked at when I looked at the budget for fiscal year 24, and we talked about a millage increase, and I'll reconfirm what Councilman Vera said. This is exactly why I supported that, because for those of y'all that are watching this, and for the people in the press that wrote against it, you look at there's $98 million in interest that just on this issue, and this is just one issue that is before the city of Tampa that we have to pay for infrastructure needs. we have multiple, so we're gonna talk about this over and over again about how to fund projects in the city of Tampa, and we're gonna end up doing it as out of bonding, and we're gonna spend it with interest. And while 4.5% over some, historic references may not seem high, it's just in this one issue alone, and again, as Councilman Vera said, this doesn't fully even resolve our needs in fire. This is just the first steps in resolving our deficit in public safety. So this is why we needed revenue increases. I wanted to show people this. We're going to spend just on this small issue, and it seems big, but it's a small issue compared with everything else, $98 million in interest. Now, reference bonding this issue and paying it off early. If you could progress to the next screen, I think it was the next one, or the one after that, the debt services. As you can see, we're paying most of the interest rate in the first 10 years is where all this money is being paid. So while that sounds good and it's good political speak, the reality is all that interest is being paid up front. So if we're going to take out this money, we're paying this up front, and this is why revenue, something like this we really should be doing pay as you go, and we could have done that with that small millage increase that Councilman Vera and I advocated for. But alas, here we are. And maybe we can look at this again as you see the fiscal realities and the needs of the city. Maybe we can look at this again in fiscal 25, because as you can see, we're not going to do everything in 24. We're going to have to amortize this out over a period of a couple of years, and we can mitigate the damages as we see more of these facts and figures come before us. Again, this is just one issue before the city of public safety. We have multitude of issues before the city that we need to pay for. And it's a lot of money. And again, 116 million is really, it's over $200 million for this. And again, not meeting the needs that we have today. And I don't think anybody can argue that we don't have these needs. Again, our firefighters are working in substandard conditions. We have fire stations that need to be improved. We have equipment needs, and this cuts across, and it's not just fire, it's across infrastructure needs in the entirety of the city of Tampa. So those people that want to be fiscally responsible, I don't think being fiscally responsible is ignoring the opportunity to do pay as you go and just deferring to borrowing our way out of this. I think right now we're stuck in a situation that's where we are. But I think longer term we need a more fiscally responsible plan, and that fiscally responsible plan is ensuring that our revenues meet the expectations of the city of Tampa to provide the basic services that the citizens of Tampa expect. I really appreciate this presentation. I think it's eye-opening. I would like to see this in pretty much anything that we have comes before us as far as financing. I think this provides a lot of information for council to make decisions. And I want to double down on I think what a couple of my members on council will say is, well, I think the concern of council, and I've only been here for 6 months now, but I think the concern of council, which I see, is that council comes up with these agendas and we budget this, but there's a lack of confidence that the administration is behind doing what we've asked to get done and ensuring that these priorities are carried through, that the fire stations the renovations are done and according to the way we've asked them to be done, that the construction is done in accordance with the way we've asked them to be done. And the only thing I want to say is that I ask the administration, I ask all of the department leads to ensure that as we move forward, that you work with council to fulfill our desires on this. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry,
Yes,
if I could, again, just to clarify, well said, sir, and I just want to, again, clarify, I'm not downplaying cash or PAYGO. It absolutely has a purpose. I think we're using it to great effect in the PIPES program. So this is what I would describe as I hate to say worst case scenario, but most expensive case scenario. So if there's an opportunity, of course, for scaling and chronologically incorporating cash, we would certainly look at that. Thank you.
Councilman Miranda, Councilman Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this goes down about what happened yesterday, what's going on today, what's coming tomorrow. And when you look at these things, there's the PIPES program, for one thing. 20 years ago, back in the 90s, I wanted to start it. $2 a person, one for water pipes and one for taking the pipe to the tertiary treatment plant. That didn't go too well until the end. Now, the previous council, 2 councils back, I believe, passed the 5446 plan. 54 of all the $2.9 billion, let me say that again, $2.9 billion will be paid by cash. That's what you see going in the ground now. When you finance something, you only get really half of what you want because the other half goes to interest. So if something costs $100 million, you're going to pay $200 million by the time you finish paying it off. Something to that degree, maybe not 100% correct, but the story is that you're going to pay much more if you had cash. So the PIPE program is 5446, if I remember. Problem is that we never set aside these things. This administration, this council knew what we were at. You're either liberal, conservative, or realist. And then between those three is us, how we work this out. So now, when you have priorities, let me go back in history, find out how many pieces of property have we bought to pay for these stations? Do we know?
I do not know of.
I would say none that I know of. I haven't heard of any. Maybe there's some that have been bought. So first of all, you got to buy the property. Second of all, you got to design it, and you want the best designers. The firefighters could design the old fire station. They've been living in them for 100 years. So somewhere along the line, they got to know what they need, but we got to hire somebody else to do it. So what I'm saying is, if you don't have the building can't just be built. You got to have land under it. We're spending money and bonding money that if we have a plan to go forward, so much of the ad valorem, and let me say this, and let me stop there when I say the word ad valorem. I didn't vote for that tax increase, not because I wanted to, because I had to. When you have a 12% increase in value of properties, which you're going to have another 12% coming 2024-25 budget, that's what I hear. So you have a 12% increase in ad valorem. Then you're talking about people losing their homes, can't make the payment, the individual who's renting out the properties, you're creating another set of failures in life. And that's what we're facing here, failures in life. No one ever bought any property that I know of for these fire stations. Maybe the firemen that are here can know better than I do, I don't know. But I'm making a shot in the dark that no one bought the property. That's number one. So we buy the properties, maybe in this section, if we have some money, buy the properties or tie up the properties. We do not go out and tie the properties like people in the real estate business do. We went to the end that I know of, maybe I'm wrong. So the location, then how do you fund them? You fund them, you can't build a fire station overnight. You got to pay for the property, that's number one. Maybe we can find one or two to be bought this calendar year and buy the properties. So I'm saying you can still do this with minimum, much less financing if you follow a plan. But we don't have a plan. We never had a plan. Because and maybe I blame this on my father. He told me, never buy a credit card, use your credit card if you can't pay it in 30 days. And guess what? I've always done that. I've listened to my father. I hear him speak, even though dead people can't speak, but I still listen. So what I'm trying to say is there's a way out. We just can't do it overnight. And I believe if we have, working with the fire department and the administration, this council, to find the properties and buy them. That's number one. That takes a lot of pressure off when you go to finance something. Secondly, the building. You can't build a fire station overnight. You don't even have the land. You don't have the location. We don't have nothing, and we're talking about building. It's like you're married with your wife, and you say, hey, I want to build the house. Well, do you have property? No, but I'm still going to build the house. It doesn't work that way. You must have the property to build the house. You must have the property to build a fire station. And these are the things. That's why I said earlier, I don't like bonding things. I'll listen to it. I said more likely I'll vote for it. But I like to see something done between this council and that administration to buy the properties as soon as possible. And we start with something like that. At least we know, the firemen know, and the taxpayers know that we're being business and we're going to do it. I'm sorry I've taken my time, and I'll explain later the rest of it.
And Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, several things. Thank you for the excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir.
I
Yes.
hope this will be the model for other presentations going forward. Could
I
you go
appreciate
back a
that
slide,
feedback.
please?
I'm sorry, which one?
Could you go back a slide?
Yes, could I have it up, please? There you are. That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the first thing is, a couple of my colleagues have talked about the millage increase. I 100% am in the same place I was a month ago. I will never regret not approving a millage increase. A millage increase might have been nice to have from money point of view. First of all, none of this was would have been paid for by the millage increase. The millage increase was paying for salaries and other things. So we wouldn't have gotten this anyway. Number two, there's a lot of wasteful spending that's happened in the last few years. If anybody wants to know why our roads have not been paved and why fire engines, just look at things like the $12 million boathouse in Julian Lane Park, or the total cost spent on Julian Lane Park when all the other parks were falling apart. There were decisions made over the years for pet projects, trophy projects, and those are the priorities of whatever that administration was at the time. You know, before that, we had the Great Recession, so that slowed some things down. But had we increased the millage, we would have sent a chilling effect through our economy. We would have been unlike other cities in the state or other cities in the region, and we would have sent our economy into a spiral. All the problems that we're facing would have been exacerbated. There would potentially be thousands more people out of homes. There would have been businesses that would have shut down. People would have stopped moving here. It would have had a chilling impact on the real estate market. It would have been devastating for us. Our national media wouldn't be positive anymore. It would be how we're not being fiscally responsible and how we're raising our taxes because we haven't been spending money in the right way. Then none of that is what we wanted, and it would have been a really bad thing. Also, it would have hurt our chances of getting CIT passed in a couple years to have it renewed. The chilling impact and the economic situation is not good. Already we know that the developer community says we maybe have 6 months for financing before it falls apart. All the development in the city is potentially about to fall apart because we didn't raise the taxes. We're giving them a little bit more time. All of the events of the last couple of weeks have also had a chilling effect. And so we need to carefully watch our economy to make sure the whole thing doesn't fall apart. How much is the short-term debt? You say 4.5% here. How much is the interest on short-term debt?
It would be approximately the same, not a very large difference, but I can come back with some examples.
Okay. Yeah, and just another thing to throw out here, there is a market timing situation. If the markets fall apart, like every developer thinks it will, I think supply chains will start to get better and prices will go down. Every department in the city is telling me that there's a 50% premium because right now, because we're the city and people would rather work with the private sector. As the private sector economy starts to slow, it's going to affect our income, but it also may mean that prices go down. And so there could be a window 6 months from now or a little bit more where we will get better, more favorable prices. So I think we need to think about that. On this chart, I would request that this kind of chart be presented for everything that's going to be bonded. We have pipes projects, stormwater projects, road projects that are being bonded, and I don't remember seeing a chart exactly like this before. To put it in context, Hannah Avenue, which I think was a huge waste of money, is now $122 million just for the construction costs. The last number I remember was $53 million on the interest. Is that because the interest rate was a lot lower, or is it now closer to $98 million?
The interest rate was lower.
What was the rate back then?
I don't recall, but might have been almost half this.
Okay, yeah. So back when we were talking about Hannah Avenue, I asked the question and you gave me the answer. But I think in everything we do, if we're talking about a project that the administration wants, we should see what the cost of interest is. What's the cost of interest on the $41 million for Fair Oaks? City Council, as far as I can tell by talking to the clerk, has only approved 18, but if we approve 41 at some point, how much is the interest on that? With this context, it would be, that means that project would not be 40, it started at 5 million, it would be more like 70 million, correct? If we use the same, so that means one park is gonna be $70 million. So as we're looking at all the different things that we're spending money on, needs not wants, the community at Fair Oaks wanted $5 million in a new building, and the administration proposed a $41 million park that's now going to cost $70 million. So let's think about that. Same thing with Hannah Avenue. You were going to do an appraisal on Hannah Avenue. I don't know what the building's worth, but we've spent way more than we should have on that. The last thing is that in terms of the market timing, We approved a year ago Station 24. I'd be in favor of approving Station 24 again, but I want to see the fuller presentation. I'll make a motion later to do what Mr. O'Hara said. We need to see the context of all the bonding. If we want to keep our ratings the way they are, we need to look at the context, because there's a whole bunch of other projects that here the administration wants to bond, and we need to look at the overall context before we spend $124 million. And I'm not talking about waiting a year or two, waiting a couple months.
Thank you very much, sir.
Am I hallucinating? Didn't we already ask for that? The bonding issues for the entire city? Didn't we already ask for that presentation?
I believe the question was, what is our bonding capacity? And we provided that. But again, that's very high level. We'd like to share more detail across all of the debt spectrums.
Okay, yeah, 100%. I agree.
So, Mr. O'Hara, you've heard from City Council. We're now going to hear from Mr. Stocco from the Fire Union. But to quote Robert Frost, I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, if you know the
Yes,
poem.
yes, sir.
I think all of us up here, many of us, I can only assume, but I know I've made commitments to the Fire Union, which represents 700 plus individuals. I've made commitments to the community about investing in public safety. And we've done a lot of great things through the past administration, before then, to the current administration, historical. Pipes, I don't know of anybody that's going to touch something that big in public works investment ever again. That's massive. Stormwater, we've addressed all these things. We're investing in housing in ways that we've never invested before. But I think the focus moving forward needs to be on public safety, on roads, on the absolute necessary things, because I think we've fallen behind. Councilmember Carlson mentioned a lot of projects that I voted for, parks and things that beautify this community, that lift up neighborhoods. However, I think now looking forward, the time is to invest in public safety in a way that we haven't since I brought up, like the 1950s, if that was the largest investment, or under the Greco administration. When the CIT was first introduced, you had the police substations, and that was a different financing issue. No payments, no, that was, that was big, 20 years of no payments. However, looking forward, I don't know how long the good times are gonna last. Councilmember Carlson brings up valid points. How's the economy gonna turn? I think Tampa's in a unique situation where the market is so hot, we're not gonna feel the direct effects of a recession as quickly as they would in other parts of the country, because again, we're in such demand. However, I think we should look at really doing these things, reliving the investments of like the 1950s that we saw, that we're still enjoying the fruits of today. Those fire stations, although older, they're still providing the service today. And the needs are there, and Tampa's only gonna continue growing. We talked about 40 years ago, America's next great city. We're no longer that secret. We're on the map. People know we're here, and we see it. We see it in the housing market. We see it in so many different ways. But I think the focus on this administration, and I can't speak for them, but I would encourage them to continue investing in public safety, and even in the next administration, make this a priority. I don't see how the public could argue against it. I know it's expensive. I know we talk about interest. I hope and pray with fingers crossed that the CIT gets renewed, because that'll help us. But the benefit, the investment should be in these community public safety benefits that we see. Thank you very much. I'll stop there. Again, thank you for a wonderful presentation as always. Thank you for your professionalism.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Stocco, if you'd like to come up, representing the fire union, go ahead, sir.
And how much time, Mr. Stocco, for the
How much
speakers?
time would you like, sir? How much time do you need? 10 minutes?
Sure. 15.
You tell me. If you need more, we'll ask. 1 million.
1 million minutes.
Go ahead. We'll set the timer for 10 minutes. If you need more, just ask.
Thank you. Good morning, council, and Tampa, City of Tampa staff, and those listening in. I wanted to say thank you for affording that. Just what you did in the beginning was affording the opportunity to the union to speak and asking us how much time we needed. I want to thank the city's chief financial officer for that presentation, for even putting it together, because they could have not put it together. Being able to have the opportunity to come here and speak in front of city council is a privilege, and we're thankful for that. One of the privileges that we have in the fire union is that we are elected officials. Myself, the other representatives of the fire union, we're elected by the body. We're not appointed. The chiefs, the administration are all appointed. We're elected. The firefighters have used us to be the voice at this microphone. The 730 firefighters put us in the position, tapped on the shoulder, and asked us to represent them, and that's why we're here. We're all human. Many of us are human. All of us in this room are human. And we all have the same character, morals, and values we'd like to believe. But what separates us from the rest of the people in the room is that when we leave for work in the morning, we don't know if we're coming back. When we say goodbye to our families and we kiss our loved ones and tell them goodbye, there's sometimes a point of no return. And that comes with the job that we do as firefighters. We lay our lives on the line for strangers. We lay our lives on the line for one another. And that's what's built and bred in us, and that's who we are. So I say that to say we already put ourselves in a tough position when we come to this job to try and do the best that we can for the taxpayers and to save the lives of the citizens and the residents of the city of Tampa. But our work homes, these fire stations, should not be a contributor to the risk and hazards that we have every day when we come to work. Whether the fire stations and fire facilities have toxic hazards, gases, fumes, some mold, these stations should not be a factor to us not returning home to our families, to being able to kiss our loved ones and hope to see them the next day. The union is a beautiful organization. It speaks on benefits of the firefighters, higher wages, better living conditions, and what we're here today is the living conditions and the health and safety of the firefighters. This union seeks way through contracts and collective bargaining on how we can bring up our items that we would like to see addressed. Last negotiation session, this union fought to have specific language in the contract to include industry standard models, renovations, and future fire stations. We asked for compartmentalized bunker gear rooms, exhaust systems that will get rid of the fumes within the station, fire barriers that would separate the fire trucks and the fire ambulances from our living quarters so we're not having to breathe those toxins in from the bay swinging doors that we still have from the 70s and 50s. We fought for that. And we tried our best. And we were met in the middle in an agreement, the collective bargaining agreement, that the city didn't want to be handcuffed to those industry standard metrics, but rather wanted to work with the fire union and afford us a seat at the table to be able to have the discussions about our fire station designs and the health and safety of our members. Just last week, we asked the city and the fire administration if there was going to be a meeting at Station 9 in reference to these fire station improvements, and we were met with resistance. We were told that there was no meeting. Yet a day later, there's a whole cadre of facilities people and fire administrators at our fire station. Maybe we should have fought harder in that contract to get the language more concrete, that we would be able to have a seat at the table and a voice at the table. We're not asking for filet of porterhouse. We're asking for the soup and salad to be able to sit at the table to ensure the health and safety of our members is a top priority. The numbers that were reflected on that presentation, I could tell you $3.3 million was fire station number 22. At least that's the sign that was in front of the station. $3.9 million was the sign outside of fire station 23. These numbers seem relatively exaggerated, but that's our point of view. We're not economics majors. But we can tell you that this is very important to us. And we hope that you all will look deep into these numbers and find the accuracy in them to see if they reflect true numbers. We have found the land. We asked last labor management meeting about what can we do to help find the land. A simple social media post, and I can't tell you how many inboxes I have of 8 to 10 acres in the city of Tampa that have a for sale or a for lease sign on them. We'll be more than happy to have that conversation with the administration of real estate. We heard the word grant. Just 2 months ago, we were denied a grant. The city was denied a grant. And that grant was for $8 million in funding for the hiring of firefighters through FEMA, SAFER grant. That grant in the past has been awarded to us every time we applied. We didn't miss that grant. However, this last year, that grant was rejected. And we missed out. The city missed out on $8 million to fund 30 positions. We did an in-depth analysis through the International Association as to why that grant was denied. And it comes to find out that you can't copy and paste previous year's applications with previous year's budget numbers to reflect your application and what you project your department to be. Most importantly, this is a FEMA industry national grant, and what you have to do is explain how you're going to meet industry and NFPA standards, all that we've been fighting for since day one of this union. We're just asking for standard. 4 people on a fire truck, fire stations geographically located, ambulances to be able to take people to the hospital. Every fire engine, every fire truck is an ALS unit. I want to be very clear in that, because I hear oftentimes that majority of our calls are EMS related. When people call 911, they don't expect advice or to just talk to somebody. They want to be taken to the hospital. So when those rescue units transport to the hospital, there's a gap. When that boat is out on the water and there's no one at that station, there's a gap of a vehicle. That's what those fire trucks and that's what those ladder companies do. They provide an ALS unit on scene within 4 minutes or less. Again, industry standard. Every time we hear 90% of our calls are EMS related, it is dividing the union. It is dividing the fire department. We are a fire-based EMS system that provides dual certified firefighters and paramedics that respond to all types of hazards and all types of emergencies, not just basic EMS calls. If we were to start today, we wouldn't see the fire truck. If we were to start building a fire station today, we would not see a fire truck leave a station for at least 2 years. You can put as much lipstick on you want at these fire stations, but they are not big enough to meet industry standards of codes and fit the equipment that is needed to provide the best service to our taxpayers and the residents and the visitors of this city. Major cities like Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, Chicago, New York all have multiple stations in their downtown corridor. It's nothing new here. It is common knowledge that you can take a look around and we need another station in the downtown Channelside Harbor Island corridor. With the traffic alone and the density and the amount of square footage that needs protection, we need first responders to be able to hit those stairwells and get those people out. One fire truck isn't going to cut it. Bless you. At the rate of the CIP planning project, we're gonna be looking at a fire station by the time the Ray Stadium is built.
Would you like me to add 5 more minutes to the clock?
Please, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you again for the opportunity. At that CIP project, that first year was passed, and we're grateful for it. The next 4 years are projections. I can show up and show you several other CIPs that reflect similar numbers in years past to where we should have already been moving the needle. And as I mentioned, at the rate of that CIP, the Ray Stadium will be done before we see another fire station. You can't equate to apples and apples on that one. There's a problem that's not going away. As we heard earlier in the beginning from former President Joe Greco, this isn't a problem that came up overnight. This isn't a problem that occurred with this fire administration. This isn't a problem that may have occurred with this mayor. But this is a problem that's not going away. And you all as elected officials, and everyone listening in as elected officials, you can make two choices. You can continue to kick the can down the road, or you can do something about it. And that's what people put you in these positions to do, to act, quit planning, and act on it. Vote on it, and pass it. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you very much, sir. And you brought up something that we've been talking about, building fire stations. But we haven't talked about the safety of the firefighters. That's another thing. I'll bring up the name Ray Alcover. And the reason I bring it up, because I was at the funeral and it was almost 10 years ago. And I'm not a medical professional, but I've always wondered about his specific medical condition. And was it because of what he was exposed to? If you know his story, the first conversation that I had with Chief Forward, right before I got sworn in, I had orientation across the street, and I asked him about enough bunker gear, enough with what you go, you have so many calls, you're exposed to so much, even with gear on, even with not having the opportunity to wash that gear and prepare it, because you're on another call and on another call, and you're breathing those things in. Firefighters that retire and they pass away soon after. That's another thing that we need to talk about is, are we providing the safety necessary to keep the firefighters safe? Because it's not right that a firefighter dies at 50 years old. It's not right that, with all the sacrifice that you make, because you talk about, when we put on that uniform, we may not be coming home at the end of the day. And that's true, but also the exposure to the health, of each individual firefighter. It's beyond investing in building more fire stations. It's also about investing in making sure the firefighters are safe. The 700 plus firefighters that are out there, in whatever capacity, what they're exposed to. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but I can say that just doesn't sound right. Breathing all those things in. I remember the fire on 7th Avenue at, I don't know if it was Amphitheater, I think right there. My friend and I went down to that fire. I couldn't stay more than 5 minutes, and this was across the street. And I was, I had nothing protective. But he says, you're breathing in materials that have been there for over a century. I mean, and that was a major fire. That was a big deal. But a simple thing as a small fire, what happened on Howard and Columbus the other day, if it's a house fire, whatever it is, those firefighters are constantly exposed. Are we keeping them safe? I know that we discussed in this past budget, extra set of bunker gear. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we need to look at building the fire stations, updating the fire stations where we can, making sure that we have enough firefighters, like you said, 4 per truck, whatever it is, so we can serve the community as they deserve to be served while the city continues to grow, but also making sure that our firefighters are safe and what they're breathing in and they're protected from, like you said, exhaust fumes. You have a truck that starts up, those exhaust fumes go right into the living quarters, the residential area, the kitchen, whatever it is. That cannot be safe by any means. So we also need to look at investing in those safety measures to keep the people safe. All right. Any other questions or comments from council members? Then I'll go to public comment. Yes, sir. Councilman Quindale.
Yeah, I think you and I have talked about ALS, and I think my point when I talk about ALS and advanced life support and the EMS services, that we break it down in what the needs are. And I understand, a firefighter is a firefighter is a firefighter. But I want to talk about how do we accommodate, we don't need another ladder truck to provide, EMS services. What equipment do we have to buy? What physical stations do we have to be able to accommodate that equipment? And I think so, as we talk about specifics, so we're talking about a lot of money, that's my point, is what equipment do we need and how big does that station have to be to accommodate that equipment? The bunker gear, that was something that was, I believe, fought for and won at the bargaining table. So that, that's an obligation that we have, not even an option, because that's something the union fought for and won at the bargaining table. So we have to fund that safety equipment for our firefighters. There's not much in your presentation, Mr. Sacco, that I would disagree with. Again, I think this is just about staging, and again, what you see in this presentation is over $200 million, $214 million. And it's still just, I won't say it's a Band-Aid, but it's a good tourniquet on a greater process. And I think a lot of priorities that we have in the city of Tampa, fire safety, police services are all extremely important to society. And we need to place a priority on that. And now we as council have to make sure that we present our budget priorities and our ability to fund that. I bring Councilman Carlson, we may have to take a hard look at this. This is the bonding for and I know Councilman Henderson's not here, and I know a lot of people are not going to be happy, but maybe we need to defer spending on bonding for the park to be able to pay for this, and to be able to balance this out over a period of a couple of years, rebalance things or something. But I don't know can we do everything? Are we able to accomplish everything with our limited funding right now? I don't. There's some things we're just going to have to prioritize, and public safety is one of them. And I have your back. Thank you.
Sir, I see you standing up. Were you going to speak as well? No, just standing. Okay, all right. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you. And just very brief, and I hope, Nick, that we don't play your comments 2.5 years from now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is the day where we can really move a lot of this forward, and whatnot. So, and obviously we got to take public comment, but so working through the motion that I was planning on making, I'm not going to make it now, but just to say it, I was going to motion to have this plan come back to us for a vote. But in the meanwhile, and I'll have to inquire with the staff on the logistics of that, because again, I'm a stranger in a strange land here when it comes to this. But that includes also working with the union on the parts of that plan that are the most pivotal, and could be all of it, et cetera. Again, I would defer to you. I think this appears to be a wonderful plan, and things that could be funded in next year's budget. Just looking at that, but coming forward with the plan to vote on it. So again, so that we get the process started with no turning back, because we need a no turning back point. We really do on this issue, because I'm tired of platitudes. Then the second part would be a second motion to have a report from Tampa Fire Rescue on areas including Channelside, where I'm of the opinion that we do need an additional presence there, whether it's a medical only unit, whatever it may be. 33647 New Tampa, and any other areas that we could talk about. That would be the general outline of my motion that I would plan on making. And I don't know if Mr. Stock, if you had any comments on it, because again, we want as much input as possible.
Sure, I can tell you that medical-only units, that's what we have. Yep. We have fire trucks, we have ladder trucks that carry paramedics that are able to do the same thing as the ambulances, except take them to the hospital. We have one rescue ambulance downtown, 2 entire downtown and Harbor Island. When that ambulance goes to Tampa General or St. Joe's or maybe even Advent Health, the entire area downtown is unprotected. Those fire trucks can intubate, they can breathe for you, they can cardiovert, they can defibrillate, they can do everything that ambulance can other than take the person to the hospital. That's why the importance of a first ALS unit on scene within 4 minutes. But an ALS unit is anything with a Tampa Fire Rescue sticker on it right now and lights and sirens. They are all ALS units. But most importantly, is the firefighter and the staffing that you need. If you have a cardiac arrest, 2 people on an ambulance aren't cutting it. You need one to drive the ambulance to the hospital alone and one in the back. You can't have one person doing CPR alone, starting an IV, administering medication, defibrillating, documenting it all, and ensuring that everything's going smoothly. That's why these people are on fire trucks, and that's why firefighters became paramedics. We are a fire-based EMS system. We can provide immediate care now, then assist the ambulance in getting that patient to the hospital. 2 people on an ambulance with a bunch of ambulances spread out is only going to have you 3 ambulances at one call, because either way, you're going to need 6 people.
And if I may,
Go ahead, go ahead.
You know, and I thank you for that, because again, we need to be educated on these issues, Mr. Stockley. You always do a great job for that. So, and again, from what I hear from you, the plan put forward right now in terms of the options, including everything be included here for payment going forward is very good. Do you agree with that in terms of the station improvements, 24, the plan that Mr. Rajero spoke of?
The plan to putting stations into bringing them up to life safety codes and standards.
And 24.
With a detailed scope of work and permitted work to industry standard is all we're asking for. The addition of fire stations is to provide geographical areas with the help that they need. But we need to act on it. We've heard this song and dance too many times.
Amen. And I agree with your frustration, which is why I want to have something that's actionable and from which there's no turning back. I mean that, and that sounds ominous, but it's true, because we really need to do that 110%. So I'll move on that if I may. And again, you know, we could talk about channel side in this plan. I do want to have a separate time to talk about channel side in other areas, but we don't want, what's that saying? The perfect to be the enemy of the pretty darn good. You know what I mean? And this plan is pretty darn good for now. Thank you. Thank you.
And before I go to Councilman Carlson, I think it should be our goal that 2024, or the next fiscal year, 2024 is in 2 months, that it be the year of public safety. Because I've been here for over 8 years, and I've seen parks get proposed, big projects get proposed, and a deadline, and the deadline is met, or very, very close. And those are big projects. Julian Lane is one. It was supposed to be for Mother's Day weekend, and it was for Mother's Day weekend, because I voted for it, and I was there. We need to do that and focus on that, us as council and in the administration, to do that with public safety and with fire stations. I know you say, if we start today, it won't be built for 2 years. At 1:30 today, St. Pete has a discussion on that raised property, right? We'll see how quickly it gets built. You know, and you think baseball before public safety. You know, when you look at a city, the core structure, you need housing, you need transportation, you need public safety, and access to food. It's a want, an absolute necessary want, and a wise expenditure of taxpayer dollars. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, just input on potential motions. If the motion today is to vote to have staff come back for us to vote on this package as presented, my vote right now is no. I think that we should ask the chief of staff to come back in 2 weeks and say, we would like to approve this plan. Sorry, people can't see the chart, but the plan that was in one of the slides, and this 115 million, we would like to work with the administration to fund this 115 million. How does the administration propose to work with us to fund it? They might have other sources, so they don't need to bond all of it, which would save the interest. Anything we save in interest, we can put back in other fire stations or other gear to help firefighters and others. If we have the chief of staff come back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is, we've already been waiting more than a year on Station 24. I'd rather try to figure out if there are ways to save interest instead of doing that. The other thing is that if it turns out that we need to bond all of it, at that time, then what I would propose is we move forward with Station 24 and insist that start, and if we need to bond it, that we would bond Station 24, but we would not bond the rest of it yet. And the reason is that I think that, number one, the costs are gonna come down in the new year. And I think we could save millions of dollars if we waited till January, February. I'm not talking about waiting another year, just till January, February. But if we voted right now that we want to move this plan forward, in concept, I would approve that 100%. But the timing of when we do the bonding and when we start it, I think is important to the cost of it. Unfortunately, I think the national economy is gonna go down at the beginning of next year. And if that happens, what we could do is set up the follow-up. We could approve, if we needed a bond, we could approve a bonding package for '24. And then in February, we could meet again and see what the status is of the economy and what our bonding capacity is. And then we could figure out how to go forward. The other thing is that we've seen from our vote a year ago, we did vote for Station 24. And the administration didn't spend the money, didn't start it, and used the money for something else and didn't tell us. I don't think that if we voted for this package that they're gonna move forward. I want to hear the chief of staff come back in 2 weeks and say, okay, we're gonna listen. I want a commitment from the administration. They're gonna move these projects forward. And I want to see it demonstrated in shovels being turned and plans being developed and all that. And so if we see it, a commitment from the administration that they're going to partner with us and maybe help us find other funding sources, and we can take credit ownership together, then I would be 100% toward moving forward. I don't want this to be an adversarial situation where we're demanding that they spend money and then they decide that they're not going to turn dirt or do anything, and then we're complaining every few months or years. We need to somehow figure out how to move this forward. The other thing is we need the bonding big picture from the CFO, and I've got a motion I want to make regarding that per his suggestion. The last thing is Channel District. I spent a lot of time talking to Nick one day when I was driving around Channel District, and we know there's one piece of property at the northern end of Channel District near Adamo, but the plan that Joe Greco worked on says that it technically should be in the parking lot next to Starship. I talked to SPP. They've got plans for their whole property already, so there's no space for a fire station there. But interestingly, when you go across the street, and somebody's from the port is here, and we should not ask him his opinion because the board would need to vote. But across the street from the Sparkman War parking lot, there is a port-owned multi-story parking garage. And the ground floor of it was built initially to potentially be converted to a department store, other things, and it's built to allow, unlike a lot of parking garages, it's built to allow semi-trucks in it, which means it's big enough for fire stations. I've talked to Nick, I talked to Fire Chief, I talked to Chief Bennett about the concept of looking at it. The mayor sits on the Port Authority board. We potentially could go to the Port Authority and ask them. Right now, SPP has a lease for that space. But the thing about that is we don't have to buy any land. We maybe could buy access to that space through the Port Authority, but the Port Authority and all their properties would benefit from having a fire station there as well. They would lose whatever the revenue is on parking, but that's potentially a space that's ready built. All we have to do is build inside it, and it's got access from all sides. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you very much. Anybody else? If not, we'll go to public comment. We have Miss Stephanie Pointer. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Stephanie Pointer. I'm going to throw some crazy stuff out there. What I see here is like when you go to buy a house, this is kind of like the pre-approval stage, you know? Doesn't mean you're getting a loan. It just means that your credit's good enough to get that loan, in my opinion. I would hope that that's all the further we're going today, because I wouldn't want to commit $200 million until we find some property. And I want to point out, I think Councilman Carlson's idea about the Port Authority land is a good idea. I also would like to point out to you, this is Inner Bay and Manhattan. We have the new Fire Station 19 here. Next to that is a vacant lot. That lot has been vacant since at least 2011. It's 2.74 acres according to the tax collector's office. That's land that's already owned by the city. And it is on an industrial corridor. Why can't we put the fire station's maintenance yard there? And I would point out to you that if anybody got all upset about it, that we have Fire Station 19 that is sitting down, the old Fire Station 19 that they're like, we don't know what to do with it, but it's got land connected to it. If the city owns both lots, swap them out, put the industrial property where industrial belongs, where it's only gonna abut a fire station, TECO, and MacDill Air Force Base driveway. Okay, so that cures one problem of finding out where to put the maintenance. It's also on a transportation corridor where a bus line moves. I would like to point out that if we need this fire station in Channelside, then it's time for them to get off the CRA funds and put it back in the general fund. We don't need to budget that for later. You know, here's the thing. South of Gandy was noted in 2019 as needing a new fire station, and we haven't even, nobody's even touched it today. I want to please remind you that they have doubled our dwelling units down there. Not just doubled them, but built 4- and 5-story plywood palaces. Mr. Stucco can talk about what that means. Chief Tripp could talk about what that means. But when we have a real fire down there, when one of those jokers catches on fire, we're screwed. Because there's only one way in and one way out. So the other thing is, we have a private developer who has offered 3 acres for a city park on Rattlesnake Point to the city to do some negotiations with that. Why are we not looking at putting our Marine unit in there? Doesn't have to be a full-size fire station. But there's over 1 million square feet of housing right next to it. So let's use what we have already before we start going out shopping for more.
Thank you very much.
And let's use our money wisely.
Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Good morning, Council. Mike Billick, Secretary of Tampa Firefighters, Local 754. I want to touch on a couple of things. I was taking notes while everyone was speaking, and Nick did a really good job of explaining the ALS discussion that Councilman Clendenin was having. ALS is Advanced Life Support, right? It's a service that paramedics can provide to patients. It is not an ambulance. The ambulance has transport capabilities. The fire truck has all the capabilities because they're advanced life support. The ladder trucks, every vehicle in the city of Tampa that has butts in the seats is ALS. The only difference is that the ambulance can finish the call and take them to the hospital. But every single one of us can administer that care in the interim time to get the ambulance there to get the call finished. The CFO, he presented some numbers that the word that comes to mind is astronomical. If in 2018 we broke ground on Fire Station 23 and spent $3.9 million, which Nick failed to mention also included a community building, how on God's green earth are we 5 times more expensive today than we were in 2018? I have a hard time believing that. That doesn't add up to me. 15 million, 18 million, 20 million for fire stations? We just spent 3.9 and did more than we've done with the other footprint fire stations that we've built. If these prices are correct, we need to seriously look at the process on how the city of Tampa builds things. Something is seriously broken if that's the correct prices. The options of adding an ad valorem tax, that should have been discussed when we were discussing budget. Why are we discussing it now? This is not a new problem. This is something we've been talking about. Joe Greco was on there talking about this 2.5 years ago. The guy's so passionate about it, he comes tears in his eyes. Why are we talking about it now? We should have talked about it before. And one more scenario for if in fact this is true, shame on this city for kicking the can down the road for so long. Actions have consequences. We've been talking about this for years. Councilman Maniscalco, you talked about the boom of fire stations in the city of Tampa. I did a little research for you. Fire Station 9, 1958. Fire Station 15, 1958. Fire Station 16, 1958. Fire Station 17, 1958. Fire Station 18, 1958. Fire Station 14, 1959. How did they do it? That wasn't the only boom. They did it again in the 1980s. Fire Station 7, 1981. Fire Station 8, 1982. Fire Station 3, 1985. Fire Station 5, 1985. And Fire Station 20, 1987. It's been done 2 different times in the history of this city, and it's time to do it again. Thank you for your time.
Fire Station 1, isn't it like 1970?
78.
Okay, so it's, yeah.
That one didn't fit the mold of the 80s, but you get the picture.
Charlie, how did they do that in 1958?
Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Good morning, Council. Don Snipes, Vice President, Tampa Firefighters, Local 754. Here's a scale map, City of Tampa. I have 4 cities in the state. Tampa, Orlando, Miami, and Jacksonville. Same scale. City of Tampa, 1 fire station in downtown corridor. City of Miami, they have 2 stations. Same square footage, same geographical location for coverage of their fire rescue services. City of Jacksonville, 3 stations to cover the same geographical area of their downtown. They also have a separation that almost mimics Harbor Island, separated from the city to get that coverage. And then the last here, City of Orlando, 3 stations. All these major metropolitan areas, same geographical layout, same square miles, covered by multiple fire stations. Tampa, the city of champions. We have champion football team, champion hockey team, baseball team that's been to the dance multiple times that, you know, can't finish it out right across the bay. We compare ourselves to these areas geographically, and we still can't catch up with the times. The firefighters aren't asking for us to take money from any other project, whether it's housing, whether it's parks, whatever it is. We're looking for you all, the champions that were elected here for our council, to be those stewards to find the right way to do it and get it done. We're way behind. We've done, I believe it was 10 years ago, we sent our inspectors to the city of Miami to ask them how they were putting fire stations in. And they said, anytime we put a vertical building, we asked to put a fire station because that's going to cover that living area. City of Tampa's doubled.
Yeah.
If you look at, I started in 2003. I want to say it was 184 or 187,000 people lived in the city proper. Not downtown like Councilman Miranda said, because they rolled the sidewalks up 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. It was empty. Look out the windows. We have high rises that have bodies in them. The people are moving into the city at a record rate. We've almost doubled our population in 20 years. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Good morning, Robin Lockett. Just a quick notation. The way to resolve this problem is, as the secretary? VP, I'm sorry. I agree with him. It's not to take money from other projects, i.e. Fair Oaks. Fair Oaks needs to go forward and not stop it, but there's other ways for you to resolve this problem. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else for public comment? If not, we'll go to the motions that were discussed. Councilman Vieira, Councilman Carlson, Councilman Clendenin.
Yes, and if I may, so this is my motion, and I was with Councilman Carlson, I was going to make a motion that kind of had 2 sides to it, which is to come back with a actionable plan of action, but also to, number 1, ask for the administration's buy-in formally. Obviously, we want that, and I think we're going to have that. But then number 2 is to see if there's any other, for part of this. This is over $100 million. We have to do our due diligence on it, but we also have to act promptly, especially with Tampa Fire Station 24. That's, and I think we all agree like that's got to happen immediately, so to speak. But so my motion would be 2 parts. So the first part of it, that's a little complicated, which is number 1, to have the administration come back for a presentation of something that we can move forward in terms of a vote. Mr. Rajero, I don't know what the proper term would be for that, so pardon my ignorance, but also to come back with the administration's position on that, support, buy-in, and then number 2, side with that for other potential revenue sources, spending cuts that can be made. Again, not talking about Fair Oaks. That's with all due respect. I respectfully would not support that. With all due respect, but other things that we have a $1.9 billion budget. We owe it to the taxpayers to exhaust all other sources. But again, I want this to come back to us quickly so that we can, at the very least, move Station 24 That's the real urgent issue. We can move that forward. Then the second motion I would make, and again, the what?
So
Oh, I know, but I'm not making the motion yet. I haven't made it. I'm-
Councilman Vieira was thinking,
Yes,
in terms of a
please,
date,
thoughts.
there's January 11th. If it's enough time, the CFO is to present an updated budget to council on a quarterly basis, so maybe that would be the right
Or
time to
December
do it.
7th. Can I just make a suggestion on about the motion?
Yeah.
You make whatever motion you want, but here would be my suggestion. Maybe we could split it into like 3 different parts. The first would be that, and I don't know if we could pull that slide back up, but we, city council, vote, can somebody go back to the listing of the projects? Like back a slide?
I got it.
Just a declaratory statement that city council would like the administration to move forward with these projects. So that's one motion. So that shows that we agree with the feedback we've got. Number 2 motion is that we would like the chief of staff to come back on December 7th to let us know if the administration agrees and if they have other funding sources that they might suggest.
Okay, so we have an existing motion from Councilman Vieira, or do you want to incorporate?
Yeah, so with whether or not the request that they move forward with it, I mean, I think 2 + 2 is 4, right? This gets us to 2 + 2 being 4, revenue sources, et cetera. And I don't write down, what was the second one?
The second one, I think it's important to have the chief of staff come back because he's a representative of the mayor. So have him come back and affirm that the mayor's office supports this list that we would have said we endorse. And then second, that he would suggest the funding mix that the administration recommends.
Sure, so my motion, which incorporates everything, the first one, I'll state it succinctly, is, number 1, that on December 7th, if that's a good date, that the administration returns with a plan putting forward these projects for city council's consideration. That's part number 1. Part number 2 is that the administration state its position on these in response to city council's position that it supports these projects. Number 3 is that the administration also return with additional potential funding sources through whatever sources that could help offset some of this, because obviously we want to be as fiscally responsible as possible. Those are the 3 parts.
We have a motion, and we have a second, Councilman Carlson, we have Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much. I would like, I'm not opposed to that, I agree with that. However, in this uncertain world that we live in, my motion is going to be, if it's possible, if it's made, that we have the chairman of the police and fire meet with the administration between now and January 7th. I mean, the 7th of December is a bad day.
You're talking about the 2 union presidents.
Yeah, well, no, the city administration, that our chairman of police and fire meet with the administration, the mayor, or
Of the public
Mr.
safety.
Bennett, yes.
Oh, okay.
To
very
meet
good.
with them, instead of having 7, having a discussion, so
That's-
they can maybe come to some applicable.
Do we need an official motion on this?
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
Well, I read that the union president's gonna deal with the 7 of us, but he's the one that's working so diligently, so that maybe they can come in and find common ground to solve these problems.
If you're not a seat at the table, you are the dinner.
Pardon me?
If you don't have a seat at the table, you are the dinner. So I think having the union president there is important.
I'm going to make a suggestion,
Yes.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
would second that.
Rather than have that in the form of the motion, I'm going to suggest that is a recommendation that is made to the chair of the public safety. You're the chair of the Public Safety Committee?
I am he.
And in that capacity,
I am.
the suggestion and the consensus of council is that you do that sort of meeting. I'm going to
Sure.
suggest it for a particular legal reason, is because if it is delegated by this body to do so, it becomes a sunshine meeting.
Yeah, but wait a minute, anytime any official meet with officials, a sunshine meeting.
No, it's not.
Not?
No.
Tell me
It has
how.
to be the same member of the same collegial body. If there are 2 members of the same collegial body there,
They're not gonna be 2 members, there's only 1 chairman of
Exactly.
of fire and police.
and the other nuance of the law is when you delegate as a body that authority to represent that body to do that, I'm not making this up. When you vote and motion and vote to delegate somebody to do that and imbue them with that authority to act on behalf of city council, it creates a sunshine position.
You remember I
that
tried to do
requires-
this a couple
So-
times and I got slapped too.
Anytime anybody meets with another elected official is a sunshine law, period.
No, sir.
If they're on the
If,
same
if,
bu-
when you meet with the mayor, it is not, and they're both elected officials, so.
So we make the recommendation.
So my suggestion, and I'm not questioning or challenging Councilman Miranda's suggestion. It's an outstanding suggestion and is one that is perfectly legal. I'm just saying that when you do it in the form of a motion and a vote of this board imbuing him with that
So
authority.
we'll keep that separate from the stated motion.
Yeah,
Yes,
why don't we
please.
vote on this one and then vote on his?
Councilman Vieira has made a three-part motion. Councilman Carlson has seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Would anybody like to recommend that the chair of the Public Safety Committee be a part of this?
No, I would recommend that he does it on his own.
All right.
And
Second.
I like that.
emailed my aide, to see at 11:20 more or less to set that up, because she's out today. And then my second motion, if I may, and this can come back in January, is for TFR to come to update us on what is being done for fire response and fire needs in Channelside, New Tampa, anywhere else that council wants to add.
We heard south of Gandy.
South of Gandy, if that's.
And I heard the suggestion of Rattlesnake Point. I don't know what that's about, but obviously the density is, with all the new development, you have a lot of new residential.
I was very intrigued with something that Councilman Carlson said about the garage, and like I say, not to put anybody in the port on it, but I think that's an interesting prospect, and it actually opens up, because clearly what I see is the Harbor Island issue, not necessarily Channelside, and that really provides service and access to Harbor Island, and it gives us more separation from the existing fire stations. So can you amend yours to include that in that? Thank you.
And that's
And
Harbor Island?
have those discussions about, talking with the Port Authority about possibly a fire station in the garage across from Sparkman Wharf.
If you go back on the record, you see where I made that months ago, or a few meetings back, where I said, you're never gonna have a standalone fire station anywhere in downtown anymore.
Right.
Be the ground floor of some tall building.
Well, it seems like such a great opportunity,
Yeah, I
and again, Harbor Island, if you geographically look at response times from Fire Station 1 through the areas where our real big deficit is Harbor Island, and of course with the traffic congestion, and everything we have, that's a problem, and by providing a physical location at that garage, you're able to service Channelside and, two birds with one stone. And
I'm happy to
also-
make that a
also
second
Harbor
motion
Island.
too, if you want.
Okay, either way, we can make it.
Yeah, if you
one.
wanna.
Okay.
All right, do
But-
you have an outstanding motion?
Yes, sir, if I may. So my motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, council, I think this encompasses everything is, and let's do now I'm gonna say the second week of January. I haven't looked
We
at the
have
calendar.
January 11th. That's
Okay, let's
the
do-
first time we come back.
So let's do January 11th, but the Tampa Fire Rescue, if you need more time, or we need a time where we have more time on the schedule to talk about this, because this will take a while, I can make a motion to change the time, but my motion is for January 11th for Tampa Fire Rescue to come to talk about Channelside, New Tampa, and south of Gandy. Does that include everything?
Yeah, that's fine.
I want to make sure.
Yes, Mr.
'cause
Shelby?
Just a reminder that would that be under staff reports and unfinished business? I'm going to remind you that you have 3 presentations on
Okay.
January
If you like
11th.
January 25th, it's short.
25th, let's do
All right.
25th.
Under,
Staff report. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do it. If we have to change it, we change it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Vieira. This will be under staff reports for January 25th. Second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, sir?
Yeah, two motions real fast. One, just following what Councilmember Clendenin said, I'd like to make a motion for staff to report on January 25th after the other one, or included in that, about the possibility of building the Channel District fire station beneath the port parking garage across from Sparkman Wharf.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson.
Can you further clarify that motion so that it basically asks the administration to have those advanced talks
Yeah,
with the Port Authority?
including having spoken with the Port Authority.
and who's going to be appearing on the staff report?
Just said staff.
And maybe we could ask the board to report at the same time? Double check? Cross-check?
Probably it's okay just to have the staff.
All right.
Okay.
What?
Just a reminder, Council, because this came up in conversation recently about council's business. When you request somebody from outside the administration to appear under staff reports, it's incumbent upon the council member's office to arrange for that person to be there. So ultimately, that's the council member's responsibility when they invite somebody to appear at city council.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And yes, sir?
Yeah, second motion is, and sorry it's long, but I just want to be very specific so he knows what we're asking for. I would like to make a motion to ask the CFO to report to council on December 7th as to A, the bonding capacity of the city, B, current bonds, outstanding, timeline, and cost, C, bonding potential with enterprise funds, D, bonding potential with general fund, E, cash flow impact of new bonding, F, impact and inputs to bond ratings.
Is that good with you, sir?
Yes, sir. You said December 7th?
Yeah, and I'm going to give this to the clerk so you don't have to remember all
Yes,
that.
sir. Thank you.
We have a motion from Councilman Carlson, who will provide it to the clerk because it's very lengthy. Second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
We have a representative of the port who's been waiting this morning. I don't know about the schedule, but if he has a 5-minute presentation,
You
if
want
there's
to
any
move
way.
along next?
I don't know who else is waiting for the next one, but if there's
Do
any
we
way
have
to get.
people here for the streetcar discussion on 2, or do we continue? No. Anybody for the streetcar? Well, let's take Mr. Klug is so patiently in the back. We'll take 3 after this, but
Can I
wait.
have a comment before we go
Yeah.
move on? I just want to make clear, because about what I said about East Tampa Recreational Complex. I don't want everybody running off crazy.
Oh, it's all over social media.
Yes, that I don't support these. I do support it. I'm just saying is we have a pie of money, and so as we have to go through fiscal years.
No.
So if we reorder things, if we have to push back a year or to be able to accomplish what's more important, building the fire station in fiscal year 24 or
Something else.
find it for me.
All right.
Find it for me.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else before we're going to take number 3, Mr. Klug, and then we'll go to number 2 and 4.
And
Yes, sir.
because some people have been spreading misinformation about my comments, including people that are being paid by the city, I want to make clear my concern about Fair Oaks, because I was one of the early advocates for Fair Oaks when the administration was against doing anything. My concern is that the administration did not talk to us about the $23 million overage. Or we just found out now that it's $30 million in interest. That was the first we've ever heard that. And we need to be included in these decisions. We need to be on the front end of looking at how much money is available and what we can potentially spend it on. The public was promised this before we knew about it. And that's my concern about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that was a much-needed discussion regarding Tampa Fire and our needs. I'm really glad that we went into such detail, and thank you to everybody for the motions. I appreciate it very much.
Can I just set this up real fast?
So we're going to take item number 3, Councilman Carlson. This is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, just real fast, I talked too much about my experience in Singapore, but 2 of Singapore's key strategies was to have a diversified port that is a hub for the region and also a successful airline, a successful airport. Over the last few years, we've gotten new leadership at the port and the airport, and they've really boosted those organizations and built them up. They're huge economic engines, but a lot of people don't know about the port and don't care about it. There are some lobbyists for developers who want to go in and take out the cruise terminals and other port material. So the purpose of this is just to go quickly through what's happening in the port, why it's important, and why we need to protect the land for the maritime industry. And this is Charles Klug, who's the attorney for the port, and we appreciate him coming to.
Thank you, Councilman. And as you said, my name is Charles Klug. I'm the General Counsel for Port Tampa Bay, and appreciate you having me there today to talk about the port. I'm glad to talk about the port whenever I can. And as the chairman mentioned about putting Tampa on the map, is that years ago we'd go around to Asia, to South America and Europe and say we're the Tampa Port Authority, and they say where's Tampa? And so we had to put Tampa on the map, show them where Tampa is. Fortunately today people know where Tampa is, and so we're getting a lot of cargo here. And so I just want to go a little background, have a PowerPoint presentation, just a little background about the port, just to show the vital importance of the port. Is last year we had 35 million tons of cargo on the port. This is 5,000 acres. Half that acreage is owned by the port for commercial industrial. About 1,250 of that is actually leased land. The rest of it is lands that are roadways and other areas that are vital to the infrastructure of the port. With respect to the port, we have a number of commodities. We're a diverse port. We're the most diverse port in Florida. We're the biggest port in Florida. And that comes to cargo, and it also comes to land. And we're full service when it comes to having all the different types of operations and cargo commodities of the port. And as you see from the slide, we're the energy products gateway for the state of Florida. 43% of the petroleum that goes to the state of Florida comes through our port. So the Orlando International Airport, they're getting their jet fuel, the diesel and gasoline for those tourists in Orlando market, coming through a pipeline that comes through our port, originates in our port. We're a major fertilizer port. That's been a kind of our history, is exporting phosphate and fertilizer from our port. But we're also a major hub for shipbuilding. We have 4 shipyards here in the port, and that's important because these are Jones Act shipyards, so we handle U.S. flagged vessels. So when all this petroleum comes into our port, those are all U.S. flagged vessels coming from the Gulf of Mexico, and so we need U.S. flagged shipyards to work on those vessels. We're a major cruise home port. Last year we handled about 1.1 million. We're going to do that about the same number next year as well, 1.1 million cruise passengers. That's an economic impact of about $648 million to the local economy. $648 million. That's based on a recent study we had done showing that the impact of the cruise industry here in Tampa. So it's a major business model for port in the city of Tampa. We're expanding Gateway. About 2016, we had 49,000 TEUs. So we're expanding Gateway for containers. And now we have about 225,000. Next year, we're projected to have 250,000 TEUs. That's 20-foot equivalent units. So we're bringing those containers into our market that we're coming from Savannah, all the way from LA and Long Beach, across the U.S. and trucked into our state of Florida. These are being handled locally. Also, we have an economic impact of $17 billion into our economy with about 85,000 direct, indirect, or induced jobs. So I'm going to show you a couple slides just to show you where we've been. Is that historically, I know we talked a lot about history today, I was listening to that, is that this is what the downtown area looked like. This is where the convention center is today. This is the Garrison Channel and the Hillsborough River. This was in 1909. You can see all those ships there, and we still had sailing ships at that point as well. This is that same area in the 1950s. You see there's still industrial maritime uses there. And this is the area in 1984. And you see, still have ships there at the convention center. And you see Seddon Island, that was an industrial port area. This is what, of course, it looks like today. So all those maritime industrial lands on the river have gone away. This was Seddon Island in the 1950s. This is a major phosphate terminal for our area. We had unit trains of phosphate going through downtown to Seddon Island. The port worked with the chamber and CSX's predecessor to move that phosphate terminal off of Seddon Island and create Harbor Island. So Harbor Island, the people realize with $1 million homes on there, that was a phosphate terminal just a few decades ago. And this is the Channel District. The Channel District in 1984, you see the industrial maritime activities, no residents at all in the Channel District in 1984. And this is the Channel District as recently as 1991. That's where the Florida Aquarium is. Industrial maritime uses there. This is what it looks like today. So this has all been redeveloped. Now, we still use maritime activities here. We have cruise ships. You see there's 3 cruise ships here. Cruise ships is vitally important, as I mentioned, $648 million economic impact on our community. But that parking lot we talked about earlier on the City Council, that's used for staging for that cruise ship, and so is that parking garage that's necessary for handling all the cruise ship passengers, buses, vans, et cetera. So the reason why these areas were able to go away and we were still able to operate as a port is because we took lands like Hooker's Point here and Rockport and Port Sutton Channel and redeveloped that into industrial maritime uses. You see it being filled in. We were able to fill this years ago, and so we accommodate those maritime uses on the river, on Garrison Channel, in the Channel District, over to this area of Hooker's Point, Rockport, Port Sutton. Today, however, our areas are built out. This is Hooker's Point. It was being filled just a couple decades ago. It's now the last part. It says new expansion, 30 acres. That's per 214. We're working on that now. We're going to be out of land at Hooker's Point. And so the reason why this is all important is because these are the maritime areas within the Hillsborough County, is that we're losing industrial maritime properties to development. This is the City of Tampa future land use map. And you see the area in black or dark brown. That's the industrial area within the City of Tampa. And almost all of the area is within is port-related activities. If they're not port-related, I mean directly port-related, it's rail. You can see the Adamo Rail Yard, that's related to port as well. So what I'm here today to talk about is that loss of industrial maritime lands. I have a report, this is Industrial Development Assessment. It was prepared for the Planning Commission in 2020. And in that report, it provided an in-depth analysis of industrial lands in Hillsborough County. It says that the county's remaining heavy industrial land uses were concentrated in port-related uses in designated industrial land use areas. The assessment stated between 2000 and 2020, the county had lost about 9,000 acres of industrial land through plan amendment conversions to a variety of mixed-use categories, and only gained about 4,250 acres of industrial uses. So that's a loss of 4,750 acres of industrial land. That's without the county. The assessment further stated that the industrial land within the city of Tampa is concentrated mainly within the Port of Tampa. The report noted that unlike jurisdictions that classify port-related areas within their own unique land use category, Tampa's Image 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan classifies it under the general industrial categories. So there's no specific maritime land use category in our land use plan. The report further stated between 2004 and 2020, there were 60 plan amendment changes involving industrial land uses, totaling 790 acres of land. Those are all converting industrial lands over to mixed-use residential. In contrast, during that same time period, there were only 2 plan amendment applications to add industrial acreage, and they were to convert heavy industry to light industry. So the assessment surmised that the development pattern of Tampa contributed to the decrease of industrial lands, noting that as of May of 2020, there were only 307.23 acres of developable lands available, and much of it incompatible with industrial use. This is all quoted from this report. The report concluded that recent trends have shown that the city is transitioning away from non-port related industrial land uses toward a greater emphasis on residential and various mixed-use categories. And as the City Council noted earlier today, the city will continue to grow, and the need for port activities will continue to grow as well. And so when we develop port lands, they have to be on deep water. So it has to be on deep water, 34 feet or more to 43 feet. We're trying to get our channel deepened down to 47 feet. I think I might have a map here that shows this. No, I don't have that map here. But this is the port. This is our shipping channel, that is, right there. We're trying to deepen that down to 47 because the ships are getting bigger. We're having deeper draft vessels, wider beam vessels, and we need to accommodate those vessels in the port. So we need to keep those lands on deep water. If you go out in our bay, the bay is probably typically only 8 to 10 feet deep, unless you go to our shipping channel, which is 43 feet. And so that's why it's important that these lands that are industrial maritime properties on deep water continue to be industrial maritime lands. With that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions on this.
That was a wonderful presentation. I've never seen a lot of these photos historically.
Yes.
And I can go into a discussion, Hooker's Point, where does the name come from? Who is that? Whatever. That's,
yes.
You know, I love history and I love this, but we're so lucky to have this port. And I'm glad that Councilman Carlson brought this up and the protection of maritime land, because we see, not just here, I don't know if you've been to Le Havre, France, but they have their port, but we are in a great strategic geographic position, and you talk about deep in the channel, the ships are getting bigger, but that's more opportunity. We have the Panama Canal, we have the Caribbean, we have a lot, and not to mention our cruise terminal. I mean, it's, you know, we just have to maximize the benefits of what we have. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and he and I talked earlier. There's a book by Rodney Kite Powell that goes back and talks about the port when it was in Port Tampa, and we know that several of the places on the western side of the peninsula there in South Tampa used to be port. So it moved from there, and some of the industrial areas, you know, we've recently changed. They've all become residential. So then they moved to, they were all around downtown and Seton Island, and then they all moved from being all around those islands all the way to the east. And that, where the cruise terminals are now, that's one of only 3 deep water channels that we have. If somebody goes in and either tries to build a riverwalk that takes out in a way that takes out the cruise terminal, or if they try to build condos there instead of cruise terminals, we'll lose access to that deep water. And if you want to see a failure, go to Baltimore. 10 or 20 years ago, they were touting that as a great replacement for the maritime industry, and it failed. Just like shops at Channelside and other things have failed in the past. The issue is that if we didn't use that that deep water channel for the cruise industry. We need it for other, and we could use it for containers or something else. But 100 years from now, somebody's going to say, why did you guys allow all your maritime land to be converted? Because now we have to ship our products in from somewhere else. And even if you're using the internet, we've got to bring in products physically somehow, unless there's a transporter beam. So this is just my impassioned plea to say, with all the jobs and the huge economic impact and the need to bring in basic things like fuels, we need to protect our port.
Anybody else? Councilman Clendenin?
Yeah, I 100% agree about protecting our port property as well as our infrastructure that supports the port. As you know, we serve on the TPO together, and I'm fully supportive of maintaining and improving our infrastructure to provide transportation options to get to and from our port, and making sure that we don't diminish those capabilities. I've had a question I should have asked this offline. What about land acquisition further in South Hillsborough County? Is there no land down there available for?
Yeah, so we are looking where we can to develop lands. The problem is we need to have lands that are on deep water.
Right.
So there's not too much land on deep water available.
Yeah.
Actually, the Hillsborough County Port District is the entire county.
Right.
So it's not just the city of Tampa, it's the entire Hillsborough County area. So we try to look at areas that we can develop on deep water, does not have environmental concerns. Because we try to also protect the wetland area, the mangroves, et cetera. But also that has access to road, to US 301, 41, I-75, 275. So those corridors are really important to us as well. As we get that road intermodal-wise, it comes in by ship, and it goes on to either rail or it goes on to a roadway. So yeah, we don't have any more lands. We'd like to get lands perhaps from a Tampa Electric Company if they're not using theirs, or for someone else.
Right.
But right now, there's no more land available for us to develop.
Well, we're actively looking at, well, like I say, Tico's up clearly.
Well, we're also separately, we're looking at trying to fill in some land, and so that's a possibility if I go back to that PowerPoint presentation, if I get access to it. So you can see right there in the Hookers Point area, the area in the green, the blue, between the green area, we're looking at filling that in to create some more industrial maritime land, because that's along deep water. It's 43 feet of water in the green. That's the area on the left side, my left anyway, on the screen. And so that's an area we like to be able to fill in and create some more industrial lands. We're just running out of land.
Right.
And it's a kind of good problem to have from the standpoint we are bringing all these commodities into our area. And as I noted earlier, we went from 49,000 TEUs in 2016 to almost 250,000 TEUs. We'll be approaching that next year. Those 20-foot equivalent units are bringing cargo to our consumers here. As we continue to grow, as our area continues to grow, we need more land for break bulk and for containerized cargo.
And if we keep diminishing our jobs, we won't need all this housing.
Yes,
so you've got to have jobs for people.
That's correct. These are good paying jobs. If you're a welder, you can work with your hands. You're making at least $40 an hour. Some of these crane operators are making $100 an hour. And so it's really good that we have these jobs here, industrial jobs, tool and die, welders, et cetera, that people can work here in the community. They don't have to go to college, get a sociology degree and looking for a job. They can go right when they're 18 years old and start working with their hands and working outdoors and doing things they love to do, building things for our community.
Port's a huge economic driver for the city of Tampa.
It sure is. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, we have public comment. I see Mrs. Stephanie Pointer. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Stephanie Pointer. Please come to Port Tampa, not the Port of Tampa, but South Tampa next to Picnic Island. Mosaic has abandoned the property that they have down there. There's one guy who works there. That's according to Mosaic. It's on your shipping channel. We need jobs. They have robbed us of all of our industrial land down there. Please come. Please, please. We would love to have you. Bottom line is, we've got to stop running off the jobs for everybody. And the Port of Tampa is more than welcome in South Tampa. But I mean, literally, I have shown everybody, I think there's probably 20 plus acres down there that is sitting vacant right now. Why? When you need land and we need jobs down there. This is twice today I get to come up here and say, you can put employment in South of Gandy.
And will you be coming tonight?
You guys are killing me today.
No,
you never know. I could be.
Hey.
But please, please look at what we've got down there, because we're on a deep water shipping channel.
Yes, and so there she's referring to a Port Tampa. That's the original deep water port. It wasn't that deep, but that's where Henry Plant, Frontage Railroad. And that's still privately owned. We don't have any interest. Port Tampa Bay doesn't own any land down there, but that's where Henry Plant bought the railroad initially. And then when we're dredging Ybor Channel, Sparkman Channel, Congressman Channel represented Henry Plant. And so he was against, or at least his railroad by that time, Henry Plant had since deceased, he was against the dredging of Sparkman Channel and Ybor Channel until the residents decided that with some outrage, we need to get that dredged. And then he sponsored it, and they named the channel after him. So and that's where we get Sparkman Wharf from Congressman Sparkman Channel. So, but that original Port Tampa, south of Gandy, is something they bring a lot of petroleum products in there, but those are privately owned facilities. We don't have any interest in that. But we like to see that continue. And we'd like to sponsor dredging to make sure that's deep enough so you can continue bringing in those petroleum vessels.
All right. Well, thank you again for that presentation, and thank you, Councilman Carlson, for bringing this up. We praise the airport, but we don't praise the port of Tampa, Port Tampa Bay, whatever, enough. All the benefits now and historically, and as we continue to grow, you know, what the future holds. Thank you again. Yes, sir.
Thank you, and please thank Paul Anderson, CEO, and your board.
Sure, thank you.
So we have a request, I believe, coming from Councilmember Clendenin for item number 2. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had several discussions offline with the mayor and the staff about the funding options of the streetcar. I'm happy to report that it appears as that all the different elements were all moving in the same direction. So, but as we talk about debt service, all these things, there's a lot of different options, and I think Vic was prepared to come today. But right now, with everything else that's on the table, I think that it's probably prudent for us to continue this motion to our April 25th motion. I think we're going to have a lot more information. I think we're going to have a lot more positive, proactive information by that date. And I'm very comfortable knowing that all of the elements are moving in the right direction with our city council decision to devote money for design build in this next fiscal year, and where we're heading with our partners at FDOT, HART, the administration. I see Vic nodding his head. I think, and I know we had a conversation with him yesterday about this. We're all moving in the right direction. We're all moving in sync together. So I motion to continue item 2 to April 25th.
We have a motion from Councilman Clendenin, second from Councilman Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes, sir.
Can I just ask Vic a quick question?
Yes, go ahead.
In the written report, and I'm not trying to open up a long conversation, but Vic, in the written report, the number that was cited for the expansion up to Palm was way more than any number I had initially heard. Can you just tell us just a quick number? What is the number that we would be looking at? Because it affects the CRA discussions too.
Sure. Morning, Chair, morning, Council. Vic Bide, Director of Mobility Department. So as of the last estimate that we had for modernization and extension, the total cost for modernization was $105 million, more or less.
But just for the expansion up to Palm Avenue, how much is just that part?
And just for the extension back then, which was in 2019, it was 132.
Okay.
Since then, as you mentioned, all public agencies have experienced inflation for a whole number of reasons. And so that's why when we submitted the memo the last time, we had updated it with an assumed 40% inflation. And so the current number is 185 million, approximately that. But that is only an approximation. It's not an engineer's estimate that's based on recent values.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anything else? All right, so we have a motion to continue this to April 25th, which we've already voted for, just in case. All in favor? Aye. So the item is continued. The last item for today's workshop is Mr. Stephen Benson. There is a memo, a written report, but Mr. Benson is here if you'd like to kick it off. This motion was initially brought forth by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilmember Carlson. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Stephen Benson, City Planning Director. I don't need to, I think, rehash the entire memo, but the motion was to take a look at the Natural Resources Advisory Committee and look at what adjustments could be made to the structure of the committee, how often it meets, et cetera. The origins of the committee were through the creation of the Urban Forest Management Plan, but the committee was never codified officially, and so Before we begin any discussions about, changing the current committee, we'd like to actually go ahead and formalize that. The information in the memo summarizes what we would be recommending and bringing forward as far as the structure, and the number of meetings we anticipate calling over the next year. And I believe we have a couple of dates in either December or January where we'd like to bring back an ordinance based upon any additional feedback you might have to go ahead and formalize this.
All right, Councilman Carlson, you were the seconder. The original maker is not here. Do you have anything to add, or any other council members? If not, do you need a motion for y'all to come back in December?
We don't. We can bring that ordinance back. It would really just be if there's any feedback on the structure of the committee. We're proposing 11 members. It's going to really be a carryover of how it's been operating more or less since it was created. But we'll establish, 4-year terms and bring that back through the formal process.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'll ask for public comment on this item. Anybody here from the public? Miss Stephanie Pointer?
Run.
Here she comes. All right, please.
You just couldn't let it go, did you?
Stephanie Pointer.
State your name.
As a victim of another committee, please establish who's going to be in charge of it, who's going to make sure that the meeting minutes are taken, and please make sure that there's a regular schedule set up from the jump, because it took us a long time to get our ducks in a row in place. And I think that you're going to have some T-tag ladies who are chomping at the bit to volunteer for that committee. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Benson, you got that? All right. Anybody else? There's nobody registered. Is there anything else from council members? That concludes the workshop agenda. I'll go to new business. Councilman Miranda? Councilman Vieira? Or do you want to wait till tonight, or whatever you want?
You know what, just really fast, I have on November 2nd, the university, the planning commission was going to report on the university area, and they wanted to continue to another 6 months because of some other issues that are happening. So if I may, I'm going to have that continued to the first week in May of 2024.
Second. We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira. We have a second from Councilmember Miranda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye, and the rest I'll make tonight.
And the May meeting is, first week is May 2nd, if you need a specific date. That's good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, anything else, sir? No, tonight, yes, sir?
I mean, I could continue to have this discussion tonight, but let's start it off today. As we all know, our meetings have been lasting ridiculously long. Our city council meetings specifically. We've been, going till 7:30 at night in a day meeting, or our night sessions till early morning hours. So something's got to give, and I know we've pretty much, I think we kind of rejected the idea of adding it another day, but the other option is how to abbreviate this. I want council to consider limiting accommodations to maybe one accommodation in person in chambers to maybe one per year for each council person, and having guest speakers until we get this under control. Limiting the number of guest speakers we have before council, because this chambers cost a lot of money and it's a lot of energy. And I know that some people enjoy this, but right now I think our options are we add another day, which I'm fully willing to do that, but I know some of the other folks have got other concerns, or we just take some temporary measures to say we're going to limit these in person. We can give unlimited offsite, but on-site when we're taking time at council chambers to do these things, and the money that's being spent here and the people that are trying to do business here, I think we need to cut to the quick and get this stuff done and focus on what's important.
Councilman Vieira, your rebuttal?
No, it's not a rebuttal. No, that's
Guilty
funny.
as charged.
That's funny. No, so I do agree that a lot of changes have got to be made. I've never supported putting another day in. I think that, with council, if we have a size 36 waist and you give us a size 40 pants, we're going to grow into that size 40 pants. That's just the way it is, I think. With accommodations, I strongly support some restriction, but I think, this council has 99 problems in terms of length, and accommodations are just one, to sort of deviate from the song and whatnot. And so that's one thing we can look at. I think the most important thing we can look at is putting enforceable limits on speaking, and for all of us, in terms of the rules. And again, I know that's hard. I mean, that's very, very difficult. Limiting the number of staff reports that we have, and when a staff report should be a workshop, make it a workshop, and really enforce the limits on staff reports. So I think commendations are a small part of that, but they are a part of that. When I say commendations, I don't include police, fire, and ATU. Everybody agrees with that, and whatnot. So again, there are a number of things that we should look at, because I agree, and thank you, Councilman Clendennon, for bringing this up, because we are going on way too long, and we can trim a lot, in my opinion.
But I will say this as chair for now. If we are to set rules, like we set a 5-minute timer for council members, I have to enforce it. Not to be rude or disrespectful, because everybody has a right to speak, but Mr. Shelby, there's a lot of people, I have to stick by the rules. Just like when we're in candidate forums and they say 30-second responses, whatever, and they stop you, 15, 5 seconds left, boom, we have to abide by that. And I think we do a good job. However, like today's fire discussion, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for the future of this city. I get it. However, we just have to be mindful in general that we keep it going.
I think the time limits during the discussion is important, but I don't want to limit discussion during the substantive issues that are before council, because by artificially, these are some really important and weighty issues, and we're dealing with billions of dollars in people's lives, and so these things have to be fully flushed out. Otherwise, we run the risk of really, maybe making bad decisions, which I know that's shocking that that's possible, but we run that risk if things are not fully flushed out. I just said there's definitely a problem on the front end of our agenda when we're not getting into city business until 10:30, 11, 12, even noon. We go to lunch without starting business. So our front of our schedule is problematic, and I think we need to do some. I think that's the easiest and quickest fix in short term, and maybe we could again make those pants a little bigger as time goes on if we get this under control. But right now, I think we need to do something.
All right, what I'll do is November 2nd is our next regular session. We have quite a few presentations, but I'll work with Mr. Shelby and my aide, and as we do agenda review to really tighten it up and use that as a pilot and say, look, we did this and within this amount of time, because November 2nd could take us to 11 o'clock before we start the agenda.
And staff reports, again, it's something else. I think a lot of these staff reports are important. I would like to see a way of figuring out not to take valuable council time for a lot of these staff reports. I think that's also important.
Mr. Shelby.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a meeting with Lisa Edwards, your legislative aide, and Ms. Lucas, the deputy clerk, to talk about these issues. And again, I'm coming back next week for a very brief staff report on just...
You said her name and she appeared.
Beetlejuice.
But we're, I'm bringing back a very quick staff report next week to address the issue of reconsideration or not having reconsideration of comprehensive plan amendments. But that'll give us the opportunity to talk maybe when I come back to address that in your rules of procedure to have some more. But what we need to do, council, in all due respect, we need buy-in from council, because rules are useless unless they're abided by and enforced. And for instance, today, you noticed we did have the timer on for both the council members and with speakers, and nothing seemed to appear to be impeded, but people cut to the chase perhaps. And what happens if people, when the timer goes off, if they need extra time, the chair just asks the question, how much extra time do you need? And allow that to take place, because obviously, particularly at a workshop, these are public policy discussions. These are very serious matters, and these are where long-range decisions are made. So I understand your point, Council Member. And this afternoon, did you want to chime in on anything, Ms. Edwards? You wanted to go to the microphone?
Come to the speaker, to the podium.
And please state your name.
Yeah.
So then this afternoon, we have a meeting with
Who are you?
Lisa Edwards, chair, listen to me, chair, aide to the chair. This afternoon, we have a meeting with Marty and with Suleen to look at the upcoming agendas and the calendar. I think one thing that we also have to be very cognizant of is when we are bringing back things as far as to workshops, to see what's already on them, because some of these workshops are overloaded, some of these agendas are overloaded, and we need to work on trying to space this stuff out, because we do not have enough time when we have an overloaded workshop and then we have to come back to an evening meeting.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well,
it's
we'll
not, so we have
discuss
to be
it.
very careful with the calendar, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, we obviously need to do something to affect the timing. I agree with limiting the number of accommodations. I agree with limiting the number of ports. So per meeting, so if we do that, what happens is if we spend the whole morning on that, then we don't have time to get to everything else. There's another factor that we haven't mentioned, which is that if those discussions go long, then public comment isn't until 11. And we probably ought to set a limit and say, regardless of whatever's happening, by 9:30 or 10, we're gonna allow public comment, because it's not fair to the public to have them sit forever. The other thing is that if you're gonna limit reports or presentations, I would suggest limiting it to something that is related to a policy issue that is before us or is coming before us, and maybe we would have to explain that. And there also need to be time limits. Like the previous speaker, I don't know exactly how long he went. I told him 5 minutes, maybe he went a couple minutes over, but I think we need to tell everybody, you have 5 minutes, and I'm not criticizing him because he did a great job, but we need to do that. But also, a presentation like that is not, I don't know if you all realize, it's not a fun presentation. It is a presentation to understand that as we're looking at what's happening around the port, we need to make sure that we protect port land. So it is tied to policy, and I'm hopeful that we will have a maritime designation in the next comprehensive plan, so we'll be able to protect that. But we need to be able to, I think, instead of just having people come for fun to speak or to speak about issues that are not before us, if we have them only come around issues that are related to business, and then we give them a time limit, that would be good. And the last thing is that I totally agree with setting timers for us and just cut us off. I went 30 seconds or a minute over before, which I apologize for, but I'm okay with being cut off.
Councilmember Miranda.
Well, the problem is us. We've been talking for 10 minutes. We haven't done anything.
That's right. So Mr. Shelby's going to talk with my aide and Sue Ling, and we'll come back with something. So very good.
Can I ironically say one? Ironically? Yeah, I know, just 10 seconds. You can put me on a timer if I may. No, I would also say, time certain for staff, because I mean, having like last week here, I think we had the police here until like 6:30 or 7. And all these, and I just want to say this, all these comments obviously are no reflection on Chairman Maniscalco's wonderful late Lisa, who do a great job. We just want to equip them to do tools, have tools so that they can utilize, and I know enforcing's not easy, so just my sentiments.
Do you have any new business?
Yeah, just fast if I can. An issue has come up when people are building large condos, especially in the Bay Shore, South Tampa area. The construction, parking is, from the community's point of view, haphazardly put all over the place. There was one where a park was essentially destroyed by people going through the park. So I would like to motion to ask staff to report at the April 25th workshop as to having City Council approve contractor parking plans with public input for major construction projects.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson, a very good motion, and a second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's for April 25th workshop.
Yeah, that I just moved it to one that was open. Okay, and then one last thing. You all probably saw the emails from Carol Ann Bennett and others. We have this comprehensive tree plan that's been presented, and it was presented at a public forum at Julian Lane Park, but it was not recorded. The community, especially the tree advocates, want us, all city council members, to see it in total and hear public input on it. But the presentation takes an hour and a half by the consultants, and they also want to make sure it's recorded. I'm not going to make a motion right now, but at some point, I'm trying to figure out if we can do this and how. It's on the agenda in a couple weeks, and I'm going to end up moving it because we potentially need longer to do that. I can't talk to you all outside this meeting, but you all can talk to them and let them know whether you want to do that or not at some point in the future, or I may make a motion to get about it. I just want to put it on your radar. Thank you.
Then I have nothing.
Motion to receive and file.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. We will be back at 5:01 p.m. this afternoon. We'll be back.